you ever going to start this podcast you've been talking about for like forever?
Do you think that anyone will actually want to listen to something like this?
What is your plan for an introduction?
Are you sure you want to talk about these topics? People usually disagree.
3 hours? Are you crazy?
Do you think you're some kind of expert or something?
Are you planning to have an intro song?
What if a bunch of people get really mad and hate you over this?
Do you even know how to make a podcast?
Are you just doing this because you like to argue with people?
Don't let this be just one more thing that you talk about doing, but never actually do.
Wouldn't it be better to do just one episode for each topic?
Stop trying to change people's opinions. Just live your own life.
Dude, people are never going to agree. Just let it go.
Is this going to be a long intro? Because if it is, I'm bored already.
Oh, hello. Thanks for listening. I'm back with another podcast, which means another one of these intros. People keep asking why I sound so excited and dynamic when doing these intros. They wonder why I sound like I'm doing the one thing in the world that brings me true joy and happiness. The answer, of course, is that I am. I absolutely love doing these intros. I love trying not to feel like an idiot while talking to nobody at all and recording my voice into a computer. I love attempting to walk the delicate line between sounding phony and sounding boring. I can think of nothing else I would rather be doing. I find all of my life's fulfillment in recording these intro segments. This is why I sound as if these things are true. It's because they are. The words I am saying right now line up fully with the emotion, happiness, and general sense of comfort that you hear in my voice during these intros. Now that I have answered that question that has been burning in all of your minds, let's move on. I'm glad you're listening and would love to hear from you. If you have any comments, good or bad, please contact me at whycan'twetalabout@proton.me. If you heard something in an episode that you want to comment on, search for the Why Can't We Talk About That podcast Facebook group and ask to be a member. Then you can tell us your thoughts. Thanks. This week, my guest is Stephen Kawano. I have known Steve for a really long time, but haven't talked with him in many years. Long ago, in a land far away, we used to work together in a room. In that room, the original sparks of thought that would years later become this podcast were born. Steve and I would constantly find ourselves in deep, meaningful conversations about the existence of God and the meaning of life. Because of this, he used to say to me, "Hey man, we should have a show where we discuss these things." Podcast didn't exist at the time he was saying this, so I'm not even sure what kind of show it would have been back then. Maybe a talk radio show? But thankfully, podcasts are now a thing, so the good news for Stephen, and all of the listeners, is that his dream of having this discussion happen in a format where others could listen to it is now a reality. On this episode, we discuss the music of The Whispers, Rockwell, Michael Jackson, Blink-182, Lionel Richie, Pink, the singer, not the color, Taylor Swift, Mariah Carey, Vanilla Ice, and Counting Crows. We also discuss 80s music, the Crow soundtrack, MC Hammer's Sweat Rag, old rap versus new rap, racism, politics and movies, depression, suicide, entitlement, technology, the worst way to die, trolling, transgenderism, defunding the police, determinism, free will, intelligent design, evolution, masking, vaccinations, the purpose of life, and the value of people versus the value of animals. Enjoy the conversation.
Like the two best episodes, one of them was basically like Mandalorian season 2.5, because it was just, I don't even think Boba Fett was in that episode.
Oh, really?
It was just Mando and Grogu. Yeah, I'm like, this episode's great. I'm like, oh yeah, it's Boba Fett.
You're like, that's why it's great, because it's not Mandalorian.
The best episode of Boba Fett didn't even have Boba Fett in it. I'm like, this was awesome. Then he went back to it. I was like, oh yeah, here we go again. Yeah,
right.
Remember this show?
Was it the same actor that played him in the...
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that actor.
He's great.
Yeah. Did you ever see Once Were Warriors?
No, it sounds familiar. But
it's I think it has subtitles. I think it's a foreign film because that guy's from New Zealand, and the what's the Maori?
Oh yeah, New Zealand.
The Maori
the
people.
Tribal,
yes.
Yeah.
So the movie is about that.
Oh.
But it's about how the people that's families kind of came from that are adapting to like the city, and how they're like, because New Zealand's like a city, like it's westernized now and all this, but then they still have the tribal roots, and it's a great movie, dude. You should try to find it. It's not easy to find, but the only reason I saw it is because when I was at Hancock in film school, Hancock, film class, I should say, when I was an aspiring filmmaker. they showed that. It was one of the movies that they showed. I didn't know anybody who was in it at the time.
Right.
But then I remember seeing the guy that was playing Boba Fett. I go, hey, that's the guy that's like the main character from Once for Warriors. How cool,
Nice.
you know?
Oh, so to try and find that.
Yeah. I don't know if the library has it or not. I doubt it. You'd probably have to find it
on
like
eBay or something.
Yeah. If you're gonna buy like the DVD or something, or you might be on like YouTube or I don't know, something. I don't know.
Yeah, the behind the scenes thing was cool with him because like he helped with the staff and stuff because he has like experience using the staff. He's like, hey, can we mess with the length or whatever? Can we get it, so I can be more comfortable with it and stuff?
Oh,
and
wow.
He actually had
He's hardcore, huh?
Yeah. Oh no, he had like a lot of input in that. I was like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, he's like, if I'm gonna do this role, I'm gonna do this role.
Yeah.
It's like the guy from what was the guy from Rogue One? Did you like Rogue One?
I loved Rogue One.
Okay, I think that's probably my favorite Star Wars movie of all time.
It's great.
It epic.
Yeah, I haven't finished Andor. It's not bad or anything.
We didn't start that one yet.
It's a slow burn, which is similar to Rogue One, but I think it's a little too slow.
Okay.
And I've watched like 4 episodes, and again, it's not bad. It's kind of a lot of effort because it's a whole lot of. It's very slow.
Okay.
Not in a bad way, but it's a lot of
a lot of story. And
it's a lot of like
background
do
stuff.
like different parts of the Empire where it's like I don't know. It's well done, but it's very slow.
Okay.
So yeah, it's kind of hard for me to get motivation to. I want to finish it, but it's just I'm like, man, this is really slow.
Yeah, and timeline wise, where does that fit in? Is it after Rogue One or
no?
before?
It's prior to Rogue One.
Okay.
Yeah, it's prior to Rogue One. I'm not sure how prior to Rogue One, but it's him getting into the Resistance and stuff, and because when it starts, he's not even in the Resistance, which is cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Here, I better put her on her little pillow, or she's gonna make noise the whole time.
Quack quack.
Yeah, she's made an appearance on every podcast so far with her little clicky. There you go. Oh, sorry. There you go.
Oh my gosh.
So, anyway. All right, man. Well, usually we start with just with music. I assume you're a music fan still. I remember we had discussed it many years ago. This is kind of cool because I think the whole idea of this podcast started back then.
Nice.
Back when you and I used to have those discussions at work. And what was that? How long was that?
That was 2009, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, because I got promoted. So it was 2009, 2010, somewhere around there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dang. So it's been like 12 years or so.
Yeah.
Long time. So that's what's kind of cool. It's like, we're 12 years later and it's finally kind of here and we can have discussions now.
The podcast didn't even exist back then.
Not really. Yeah, because we were calling it a show. We should have a show. We should have a radio show. I think is what we were saying back then. This would be really cool just to kind of have these discussions. So I usually start with music just because it's not as controversial necessarily. But I usually start with just saying do you have a specific genre of music that you prefer?
I like everything basically, but if I had to pick one, it'd be 80s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love 80s, and I think the reason I love it is just because of nostalgia.
Right.
Like I'll hear an 80s song, and bam, I'm back. 8-year-old kid in Guadalupe growing up, and I'm like, oh man, it just catapults me back.
Yeah. See, I like that for the same reason.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like a timestamp.
Yeah.
Where you, I always talk about like my first musical memories are like driving in my mom's car listening to the radio, and that was I was born in 78, so it was like
79.
So we're about in the same area, so it's like those kind of early to mid 80s kind of songs that were going on. Is there anything specific from that time frame, like specific bands or artists that you
Rocksteady is my all-time favorite song.
Okay.
The Whispers.
Oh yeah.
It's just it's just my absolute. I don't even know why. It's just I love that song.
Right.
Like to this day it comes on, I'm like, oh man, it's just
and that's kind of a one-hit wonder, right?
It really is.
Okay.
Yeah, 'cause I can't name another song by them. I love the one-hit wonders. Like I'll hear a song, like, oh, I love this song, and people are like, who is it? I'm like, I have no clue.
Right.
But I love this song.
Yeah. Well, that's a big part of the 80s, right? Because back then it was all about the single. You got to get out the single, and it didn't. The whole album didn't really matter as much. There wasn't as much artistry, I think. Where it was like, okay, let's make a whole album that's good. It's like, no, let's just make one really good song and it's really poppy and catchy, and then the rest of the album can suck for all we care because people are going to buy it just because they want that one song. You know, that's really cool. We just did for my wife's birthday party. We did an 80s themed party at the skating ring. It's awesome. We had everybody dress, you had to dress
Nice.
80s. I made up an 80s playlist that we could play.
Oh, heck yeah.
That was on there. Rocksteady was on there for
Nice.
sure. And which is funny because I went back preparing the playlist and I'm listening to it, because this is like a family friendly kind of thing.
Right.
And I'm kind of listening to the lyrics to that song. I'm like, I never realized like this song's about sex.
Right.
But as a kid, I never thought that. I was like, oh no, it's music, rock steady all night long. All right.
I equated with Ninja Turtles.
Oh, yes, Bebop and Rocksteady.
That's probably another reason why I love it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's another good one. And then what's that other? Somebody's watching
heck
me,
yeah.
which I was listening to that and I was like, man, the guy in the chorus, that sure does sound like Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I looked it up. Wait, that is Michael Jackson.
Yeah. And it's cool too because apparently like Rockwell, he was like a nobody, but his uncle was like a giant music producer. So he hit up Michael Jackson. He's like, hey, you do me a solid. Just do the chorus line for my kid.
Right.
And Michael Jackson did it. And yeah.
Crazy. And then another one hit
That's
wonder.
the only Rockwell song I can name. I love that music video though. That music video is brilliant. It's so good. It used to freak me out as a kid.
I don't think I've seen it.
It's really good.
Okay.
Like it's cheap obviously, but it's a really cool music video.
Is that what it is? Like he's trying to get away from somebody who's following him or something?
Yeah, like
Okay.
he's in the shower and stuff, and then the mailman and like the people on TV like actually turn and look at him. Like it's a creepy music video, but it's really well done. Michael Jackson isn't in it unfortunately, but
right.
Yeah, it's a cool music video.
Right, because by the time they went around and making the video, he was probably too big. He was probably too busy.
He's like, no, I'm on tour, can't make it.
Yeah, he's
day.
probably working on Thriller at that point, or I don't know what year that song came out, but
probably Thriller. Yeah.
Okay.
It's probably like right after Off the Wall.
Yeah. I think Thriller was like 80.
Just exploded.
84, 85 was Thriller.
Sounds about right.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah. When he still looked like Michael Jackson.
Right. That's the thing that always like cracked me up. Like it's like he'd always deny any plastic surgery. It's like,
dude, come on,
dude. I mean, really. I mean, you look at a picture of you from like even like early 80s, like even like the Thriller album. But even in the Thriller album, you compare that to
Off the Wall. I think he was good. Like he hadn't done anything yet, and then after Off the Wall, once the checks started coming in, he's like, all right, let's do this, do this, and then every album just looks a little different. Then you get to like Dangerous, and you're like, that's Michael Jackson,
right?
Like, all right,
yeah, it was bad, but I mean, I think he had a lot of childhood trauma and that kind of stuff.
It's a tragic, fascinating life he led.
Right.
Like it's so sad. Mm-hmm. But I mean, it's fascinating. And him growing up, I mean, obviously loved Michael Jackson. I mean, he's just insanely talented.
Oh, dude.
Like everything, he's just insanely talented.
Right.
And it's just so sad that his road took the turn that it did. Because he could still be right now making music, doing tours and stuff.
Right. Well, he was getting ready for a tour when he passed. Yeah,
he was getting ready for a tour to pay off all his debt, and he was so messed up with drugs that they were like, "He's not going to make this."
Right.
Like, because he was setting a record, like that. What he would have done would have been a record for the amount of shows that he's doing in that amount of time, and everyone's like, "Dude, no, his health is in the toilet. Like, he's not going to physically be able to make this. Like, he's a wreck."
Well, I heard that's why he was on a lot of those drugs, is because he was trying to. He needed the energy to keep doing what he was doing. Yeah, because he was doing the Elvis thing. Like, he couldn't sleep, so he's taking drugs to sleep, but then he needed energy to do the things. So he's like on speedballs for that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, dude. Yeah, that's horrible. Yeah. It's a bummer. Yeah, I always think about that. Like who'd still be around? Like, what would they still be doing? I even think of like what would happen if John Lennon wouldn't have got shot? Right. Yeah. Like, would him and Paul McCartney have started writing together eventually? I think so. Yeah. Because you read some of those autobiographies, and some of the things like Yoko Ono had told Paul after John passed away, and she would say things like, John always said he wanted to write with you again, and he was really looking forward to the day where they could write together again. Like, can you imagine? Like, even now, like, because you got a lot of these bands that are doing tours now, and they're coming out even with new music, like the first new album in 20 years. It's like, dang, what if that'd be the Beatles
back on the road?
I saw that with Tom DeLonge.
Yeah,
that's what was nuts. I was like, dang, dude, that's crazy. Yeah. And there was something going around Facebook. It was the poster, like the tour poster, and it had to have been a joke, because I haven't really looked at it myself yet. It's not a joke. It's pretty sad, but I mean, they all looked really old. I've heard that. Yeah, and it was almost like they purposely made them look really old. Like, I mean, they look old, dude. Like, all three of them look really, really old, and I'm like, these guys are my age. Like, they're slightly older than me. I mean, they're not. I mean, I understand they're not teenagers anymore, but on this picture, they look like they were like
70 or something. It's like, come on. Are you a fan, Blink-182 fan?
I like him. Yeah, me and Kim actually saw him at Midstate.
Okay, and she's a huge fan.
Oh yeah, we ran into, it wasn't Tom, we ran into one of them, and she was like, hey, can you play blah 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 song? It was like one of their lesser known songs.
Okay.
And he's like, oh yeah, sure, what's her name? He's like, oh, Kim. And they actually did it. They called her out on stage. I have it on video somewhere.
Dude.
Yeah, they're like, this is for Kim.
Oh,
and
she probably flipped out.
Yeah, she lost it. Yeah. And she was like, they're not going to play it. I was like, they might, because you gave them an obscure song. That's probably what did it.
Right.
You didn't give them, like one of their major hits. Like it was her favorite song, which was not a super, I don't even remember what song it was, but it was one of their lesser known songs. And I was like, that's probably why they did it, man. Because they're like, you're a real fan. You know their tracks.
Right. Plus they're probably tired of playing the same song.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, what do you want to hear? Okay, right. But no, that was amazing. I had the video somewhere.
I'd love to see it, man. You gotta send me a copy of that. That'd be awesome to see.
It was super cool. My little digital camera, I filmed it on there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I kind of like, I think after like Dude Ranch, Enema of the State, we're good, and then after that I kind of like, it's like it wasn't quite the same anymore. And then once Tom left, it was like, and then somebody had given me a bunch of CDs. This is pretty recent, like in the last 6 months or so. Somebody gave me a bunch of CDs, and one of them was California. And I listened to it, and at first I was like, oh, Tom's not even on this one. It's not the real Blink-182.
Right.
You got this guy from Alkaline Trios is in there now, and dude, I thought it was great.
Wow.
I mean, it definitely wasn't like kind of the poppy punk that you're used to from them.
Right.
I mean, maybe a few songs were, but it was just like deep and heartfelt, and some just really like emotionally moving songs, like kind of in the vein of like Adam's song, when they did Adam's song.
Right.
But like a whole album of that kind of thing, to where it was just like,
wow.
Have you heard it?
No.
Okay, you should check it out, man. It's pretty good. I mean, I'm sure Kim's heard it. She's probably heard everything that they do. But yeah, I thought it was really good. My wife's family lived down in San Diego area, and my brother-in-law actually went to high school with Tom and Mark.
Nice.
So they used to play at at lunchtime. Yeah, on the stage, right? Back when they were like a nobody band, and one time we were down there, and there were Blink-182 was on Cribs. This is after
nice.
I think it was after Enema of the State came out, so they were pretty big at this point. And they was doing Cribs, and they were going there. So, this is our favorite Taco Bell. We go here all the time. And they're driving through the drive-through the Taco Bell in Poway, where they're from. And me and my wife go, dude, we go to that Taco Bell all the time. How crazy, So yeah. So Blink-182 is one of those bands that I have a lot of respect for.
Oh, yeah.
Even though it's like, oh, they sold out, whatever. Right. It's like whatever's.
Yeah.
So anyway, but I'm skipping ahead. So what's like your earliest musical memory? Do you have anything specific?
Saw Lionel Richie in concert when I was like 4.
Wow.
4 or 5. My mom loves him. That's the very first concert that I remember going to. And then the next one would have been MC Hammer.
Nice.
Which I forget where we saw him, but it was like a big old family event. We had, not the greatest seats. So me and my 2 cousins got bored. Mm-hmm. We were like, I think we were at some fair or something. Cause we were like, we're going to leave and go ride the rides or whatever. The second we left, he comes running down the freaking thing. My cousin snatched his sweat rag off his back.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We're like, what? Are you kidding me? We just left.
Did they still have the sweat rag?
He still got it. Yeah.
He's got it hanging in a frame on his. People come over like, what is this? That, my friend, is MC Hammer's sweat rag.
Yep.
I didn't wash it or anything. It smells really bad.
I'm sure he hasn't washed it in like 30 years.
That's nuts, dude.
Yeah.
So when you saw Lionel Richie, I'm assuming that was solo time.
Yeah.
It wasn't like Commodores. It was
that was Lionel Richie, and my mom. Yeah, that was her. Yeah, he was a god to her.
Well, he's got some of those 80s songs that just take you back, man. You're like,
anytime they come on, Dancing on the Ceiling comes on.
Yeah.
Just, bam, I'm back.
Right.
Back as a kid.
Yeah, dude, that's some good stuff, man.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. So what about, and this is kind of an obscure, kind of difficult question for some people, but if you could pick one band, one artist, one singer, whatever, one musical act that has had the most impact on your life personally, like in a big way, more so than just like, oh, I like that song, I like the way it sounds, but like actually really means something to you.
Pink was good. Like I was going through a depression. What was it? what is it, Clown House, or what the heck is it?
Oh, Funhouse?
Funhouse, yeah. I remember sitting in my car. I was working at Bed Bath & Beyond at the time. I was living with my folks. And I was just going through a depression because I'd left the library, I'd shot myself in the foot. That was my fault. I take responsibility for that.
Right.
And, I was trying to find something to replace it. And I was the only thing I could find was a part-time job at Bed Bath & Beyond. So I'm driving, an hour commute for like a 2, 3, 4 hour shift, and so I tried to get a job next door, and it was sad. I was doing cash advance from my credit card to my checking account so I could make the minimum payment on my credit card.
Oh, wow.
So it was a rough time. And I remember listening to that album, and there was a line when she's like, my key doesn't fit my life anymore.
Oh, wow.
And I was just like, I was just sitting in my car, and whoa.
Yeah, you're fine.
I was just sitting in my car, and I'm just like, oh my gosh. It's just like, nailed it. And it's because I liked Pink ever since like she started. And I love Pink, like just as an artist, she's amazing.
Right.
But yeah, that song just, man, I don't think a song, because I hadn't really gone through anything deep before. That was like my first, actual depression. I was teetering on suicidal at that point.
Oh, wow.
It was, I've gone through a couple of those phases in my life, but that one was the first one. That was the first real crisis that I've ever had in my life. Like I hadn't had any deaths in the family really that anybody was close to me. I hadn't fallen on super hard times, and that was just the first boom. And then when that song came in, it just,
So would you say that song in essence saved your life? Would you go that far?
I wouldn't go that far, but it definitely, it was very therapeutic.
Okay.
And just the raw emotion that she puts into these songs, it's just, that really was therapeutic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Now today, when you go back and listen to that song, is it hard to listen to because it brings you back to that place, or?
I think that listening to it helps me, but like, it's funny you say that, because with my last relationship, when that ended, that was the worst period of my life. After that ended, that whole 2 years after that was really bad. There was therapy, there was antidepressants. And it was Taylor Swift's album. I'm not good with album titles.
What's the song? I can probably tell you that.
It's the one with the first poppy one that she came out with.
1989?
Yes.
I think Red was kind of half and half.
No, it was 1989. Okay. Yeah, like that entire freaking album. That just sums up our relationship. Okay. Like all you had to do was stay, for instance.
Oh,
like oh my, because looking back in retrospect, I saw what I'd done wrong in the relationship, and it was just, oh man, that I had a hard time. There was a time when I couldn't listen to that because it just brought me back to that just pit of despair, basically. Right. But now, I can listen to it and be like, man, because therapy saved my life, and just going through that whole thing, the amount of emotional growth that I went through there was just that literally saved my life. So now I can go back and be like, man, I was just a hot mess back then. But I was like, I did the best I could with what I had. That's
right. So it's not exactly music related, but a follow-up question I would have to that, as someone who also has struggled with anxiety and depression, do you look back on that time in a sense, and you see who you are now? Are you, it's kind of a weird way to ask it. Not are you glad that you went through that time, but you are kind of glad because of the growth and because of what that did and made you to be now. Like you wouldn't be who you are now if you wouldn't have went through that hard time.
Like I went through a lot of self-hate back then, which is why, partially why I wanted to, hurt myself.
Right.
But it's the hardest lessons that stick. And looking back on that, I was like, I did not like who I was. I liked who I was at the time, because I had no perspective, I hadn't gone through that emotional growth. Looking back, I was like, man, I was really selfish. I was really self-centered, and I didn't like that person at all. And so, but I was like, had that not happened, I wouldn't have gone through this, and I wouldn't have become who I am now. I like who I am now. Like I feel like I'm a good person now. I don't feel like I was the greatest person in the world back then. But again, I was doing the best I could with what I had.
Right.
Like that's, you can't look back and think, oh, if only I did that forever. Like, oh, if only I had done this, if only I had done this. Like, well, you didn't, so we're here now. That's it.
Well, and it's like all these learning experiences, right? Because I mean, for all you know, you could be looking back 20 years from now at who you are now and think to yourself, I'm twice as good now as I was then, you know, and but you don't even realize it right now, because right now you're like, oh, this is compared to what I was however long ago, you know, and you just kind of keep taking step after step after step, and then it's like in hindsight, you're like, oh wow, look at where I've come from, and that's what I always try to tell people that struggle with depression and anxiety, especially if they're suicidal or whatever. I try to say, just remember that you don't always stay there. Yeah. Like the next time that you're in a place where you're happy, even if it's for an hour, even if it's for a day or whatever, when you get back into that depression again and you think to yourself, I want to kill myself or I hate myself or whatever, remember that day that you had. Yeah. And remember that day came after a really, you know what I'm saying? Like there's always a light at the end of the tunnel, like always, even though, as I know personally, when you're in that pit, you don't think so. You're like, no, this is as good as it's going to get for me. There's no point in living anymore. Like we're done, you know? So it's always it kind of helps put that into perspective. So that's really cool. That's really cool. You bring up Taylor Swift too. That's a guilty pleasure of mine.
I love Taylor Swift.
Have you been a fan since like day one, or?
Oh yeah, okay. That's why I had such a big problem with 1989 when she, in my opinion, she kind of sold out. But because I love her, you know, I wouldn't even classify what she did before as country. Really, it's like country pop.
It's kind of new country.
Yeah, like I loved that. And then when she did that, so I was like, what is this? Like, no, this isn't my Taylor saying the Mariah Carey. I can't listen to Mariah Carey anymore. Well, I grew up listening to her when she first started. I loved her. And
I stayed with that one though, and the reason why is because I always felt like Mariah Carey was unique in the sense that, first of all, she's got a great voice, and I think that what she was doing at the time she was doing it, when all the other pop stars were all about selling the sex and selling, and their lyrics were raunchy and they were trying to, you know, and to me that's like, well, that's kind of all you have then. Like, but with Mariah Carey, at least on the first 3 or 4 albums, it was like, no, my music's selling because my music is good, not because I'm wearing skimpy outfits and I'm trying to do all this. So then when she went that route, and I'm like seeing her on videos with like Mace and like, and she's wearing no clothes and she's in a helicopter and she's like wearing a bikini. I'm like, really? You're too good for that. Like, you don't need to do that. There's a lot of pop stars that do need to do that.
Vanilla Ice.
Although I've never seen Vanilla Ice in a bikini, thank God. But,
true.
I don't know, man. I Vanilla Ice, dude.
I liked his second album though. Like when he went like,
did you really?
Rapper, I actually liked it. I was like, this is rad.
Oh, I don't think I ever even heard that one.
It wasn't good by any means. Like he's a much better carpenter than he is a rapper.
Well, didn't he come out with like reggae or something? He was like a reggae guy?
He did, yeah. I think that was like his third album. That one I didn't listen to.
Well, that was like years later. Because I think
true,
he had To the Extreme, and then whatever the second one was called.
I don't even remember.
I don't either. But it flopped, obviously. And then he just kind of fell off the face of the earth. And then now he comes back with this reggae thing. But then he plays festivals with all the old school, like somebody just told me the other day that they saw a concert with like Vanilla Ice, Salt and Pepper.
Oh, heck yeah.
Who else was in there? I don't remember it. All these like 90s kind of one-hit wonder kind of. I mean, Vanilla Ice is kind of a one-hit wonder. I know he had a few hits, but really Ice Ice Baby is really all he's known
pretty
for.
Much it,
but anyway, back to Taylor Swift. I didn't get into her until probably around 1989. That was probably when I came into it. Although after that, I listened to the older stuff too, and I do enjoy it. I like her kind of country, kind of poppy country stuff. But my older daughter's the one that got me into it because she's like a huge Taylor Swift fan. She even had for her 22nd birthday, she had a Taylor Swift party where everybody had to dress as a different era of Taylor, right? Like,
that's cool.
Yeah, it was neat.
Smart.
Yeah, it was down in LA, so I wasn't there, but I got to see the pictures. All her friends, and a lot of her friends really did it. Even the guys would dress up as a Taylor Swift era. Nice. It was kind of cool. But I think 1989 is probably my favorite album because I do prefer kind of the more pop.
And I like when they came out. Like at first, I was super resistant to it. Then I actually gave it a chance to listen to it. And I'm like, I don't like the fact that I kind of like this.
Yeah.
It's very catchy. I'm just like, all right, fine. Let me download it.
It's that inner war with yourself.
Yeah,
where you're like,
I'm just
it's different, but it's still good. What do I do? Yeah.
That's what I wonder about her concerts, because you look at the fans from when she first started, I can't imagine them being the same fans as like 1989 and on. So like would the 1989 and on fans even want her to play the old songs and vice versa?
Right. That's a
like,
good question.
If you're like a 13-year-old girl started out with 1989, we're like, why is she playing country? What is this? Is terrible. What is this?
Yeah.
Then she plays another thing from 1989. Oh, it was much better. Okay.
Right.
It's just like, do you play all the old ones first and then all 1989 where half the audience leaves? Or it's just because they don't go together in a concert.
Not really.
They don't fit.
No, not really.
They're very different songs.
Yeah.
I'm just like, and then you like the lyrics even. I'm just like, these are terrible lyrics. Like you were going through a breakup. These are good lyrics. Like you're helping 13-year-old girls who are going through their first breakup. Yeah, it's just
Well,
so
then you
I've
have to
always
add in
wondered
like the newer stuff, which is kind of more acoustic driven, you know, like Folklore and Evermore and some of that stuff, which is not really back to her country roots as much, but it's not really pop either. You know, it's more like storytelling, kind of singer-songwriter kind of stuff. You know,
See, that's why another reason why I like Pink is that you go back to her original album. You know, it's very hip hoppy, you know, rapish almost, but. With her, I never considered her a sellout because, I mean, she's it's like the Beatles. They're very impressive. They have very different genres, but they're all very good. So it's the same thing with Pink. She'll go from genre to genre to genre. And I'm like, these are all really good albums in their own right. They are very good albums. They're very well written and very well performed. And it's just, but with Taylor Swift, like when she did that, that was like a 90-degree turn. I was like, whoa, what? No. And it got worse. So I was like, no, this is no good.
Yeah. What was it at? Wasn't it at she won like country music album of the year? I think for Red. And it was at that awards speech where she announced that she was leaving country and going into pop. I want to say it was Red, if not the one before that.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Pretty sure it was Red though, because that's like her. Everybody says that's like her best album. That's like the most acclaimed album that she has, which is a great album. I love that one too. But yeah, it's just kind of funny. She's like, "Thank you for this award for the best country album of the year," but screw all you country fans. I'm gonna go start a pop career.
You guys are gonna hate my next album. You're gonna hate it.
Right. Well, that's kind of funny too, though, because the Red album definitely has a lot of pop elements on it.
Yeah,
I mean, it's almost like a half and half album. It's like you can almost hear that she was experimenting at that point, you know, and she's like, okay, this song's country, this song's not, you know, and it's kind of a mix-up album, you know. So the fact that it would win best country album of the year is already kind of strange, you know. I don't know about all that. So that's really cool. I think that's like the second or third time that Taylor Swift's being brought up, which is funny. I never thought I would be talking about Taylor Swift, you know, like back when I remember first hearing about her when she was American Idol or whatever. She was on one of those shows, I thought.
Oh, was she?
Maybe not. No, maybe I'm wrong. I'm probably wrong. But she was I want to say when she was really young, she got some kind of something. But I remember hearing about her long before I became a fan, and it was like, some other teeny bopper singing about her broken heart and all this. Who cares, you know, that kind of thing. So, all right. Well, that's influential. What about the most recent musical act that you got into to the point that you were like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I'm going to go out and buy everything that they've ever done?
I don't like new music, really. Like it all kind of, Ed Sheeran was probably the last one that I actually was like, well, this is really good. Who is this? And like, oh, it's Ed Sheeran. I'm like, oh, okay. And so, you know, I really liked him, but it's funny because I don't dislike music. It just all sounds the same, you know. And it's funny because I'll have like 106.1 on my radio, but then I'll also have 99.3. It's an old school station out of LA. Okay. And it's so funny because I'll be listening to 106, whatever catchy song. Because I mean, they're very catchy. But I'll be listening to that. I was like, okay, you know. And then I'll go to 99.3 and be like, it's hilarious because you're going from just the one end of the spectrum as far as like quality to the other. Like I go listen to some old school, I'm like, oh my, this is hip hop. Like this is good. This is not so good. This is very catchy and this is just helping me in traffic. But I click over and I'm like, oh my gosh. And it's ironic because 99.9% of what I'm hearing over here, they lifted for the new stuff. Like, oh, like I find it hilarious. And they're like, oh, like that one, I don't know any of their names. Like the one girl that she lifted the Elton John one, Rocket Man one, I believe it was. That's one.
Oh, she like sampled it for
yeah. She's like, oh, enjoy my new song. I was like, that's not your song.
Right,
like,
right.
You lifted the entire beat and you changed like 5% so you won't get sued. Like that is not your song.
Right. Well, that's like Vanilla Ice.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. And I don't know if you ever saw the interview.
He wouldn't even admit it.
No.
Yeah.
And he was like, no. Their Queen's song is like doom 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 doom. Mine's doom 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 ding doom.
Yeah.
Doom. It's like really, dude.
Like
come
everyone
on.
knows you stole. Just I'd have more respect for you if you just say, "Oh, I totally stole it. It's awesome. Why wouldn't I steal it?"
Especially at a time where almost every rap song is sampled.
Yeah.
Right. They sample an old song and they rap over it.
Yeah.
Basically. I mean, it's still a new song they're creating.
Yeah.
But they're using someone else's hook or someone else's beat or whatever. You know, and that's just the way hip hop's always been.
Yeah.
You know, so now you got new rappers that sample the old rappers now.
Yeah.
But if you're talking hip hop, I'm with you because I love old rap.
Yeah.
But somewhere around, I mean, I don't know, man. Even I guess some of the early 2000 stuff is okay too, but some of the new stuff.
Oh, I don't know how anyone gets records deal because it all sounds exactly the same.
It does, dude.
It sounds exactly the same.
So bad. When I work with younger people, they'll show me, you know, because we always start talking about music because it's something I like to talk about, and it's like, well, what kind of music do you like? Oh, I like hip hop. Like who? And they'll say, oh, this guy and this guy. Like I never heard of them.
Yeah.
And they'll be like, oh, let me show you, and they'll start showing me something. I'm going, and I feel bad because I don't want to be like, dude, are you for real? This is awful.
Yeah.
And because he's like, oh man, this is my favorite. This is my favorite rapper of all time, and you know. But a lot of times, what it'll come back to is they'll be like, no, it's the lyrics that I like. It's the lyrics.
Okay.
And me, I wouldn't say I'm a huge lyric guy. Like if I'm listening to a song and I can understand the lyrics and they hit me a certain way, at that point I become a lyric guy for that song.
Right.
But I'm not the kind of guy that will sit there and try to decipher lyrics and figure it out like just for the lyric. But there's some people that are like that.
Right.
And then this guy was telling me about I think Kendrick Lamar.
Oh, I've heard of him, yeah.
And the only time I heard of him, I've heard of him because working in the library, you get all the CDs coming through.
Right.
But was at the Super Bowl show where there was, and I never watched the Super Bowl halftime show.
Right.
But this last year it was Dre, Eminem, Snoop Dogg.
Oh, right.
And I'm like,
yeah.
okay, I got to see this. I got to see those three guys all together. And they threw like Mary J. Blige in there, and it was like, okay, this is kind of cool. But then the other guy, the only person out there,
that's who that was.
Kendrick
Yeah,
Lamar. Right.
I was the same way. My friend's house with his parents were like,
Who is that? Yes, that's what I was
thinking.
thinking. I was like, who is this guy and how does he belong with this group of 90s, rap stars and singers and stuff? I'm like, who is this guy? And then I found it was Kendrick Lamar. I go, that's Kendrick Lamar. So I thought he sounded horrible.
I thought they all did. Personally.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I thought they were decent.
Like, this is terrible.
Yeah, they're getting old, but when Kendrick Lamar came out, or maybe it was just because I knew the Dre and the Snoop, and I knew their songs that they were doing. I was like, oh, I remember this song, But with Kendrick Lamar, I was like, he's not very good. So I told this guy I work with that, and he's like, oh no, dude, he wasn't very good at the Super Bowl. Well, he goes, you got to listen to this. So he played me like 3 or 4 songs, and I will admit, they were pretty good. They were pretty decent. Some of the songs he showed me, it's like, okay, I can get into this. This is pretty cool.
Right.
But he was telling me like, no, dude, it's the lyrics, man. Listen to what he's saying and listen. Right. And of course, I'm trying to work, so I'm like, I can't really break down the lyrics right now. All I know is the way it sounds, and it sounds pretty cool. But yeah, so I mean that's a factor too. But yeah, dude, I mean, I grew up loving hip hop. Early on, whether it was the kind of dancey, cheesy rap like MC Hammer and Kid and Play, and some of those guys, Heavy D, right, all the way into like the gangster rap and the Bay Area scene of Too Short and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Loved all that, dude, and just like listen to what the kids like now. It's like, oh, dude, But some of the new rock stuff I don't think is that bad. As far as new stuff, what do you think of like a band like 21 Pilots? Did you ever get into them at all, or?
Not really. Like I can't name one of their songs. I'm sure I would be like, oh yeah, I know this song.
Stressed Out's probably their biggest hit, probably the most well known.
That sounds familiar.
You'd probably know, yeah.
Yeah.
The video they're riding the big wheels through the whole neighborhood.
Oh, okay, okay, I got you.
So I like them because they're diverse, and so that's probably one of the most recent ones that I really heard them, and I was like, okay, I got to get everything they've done. I've seen them live 3 times now. Great show I've ever seen. But another one is Alec Benjamin. I don't know if you ever heard of Alec Benjamin. He's not real well known. He's signed. I mean, he is signed. He's got a couple albums out, but he's just like he's just a young kid and his acoustic guitar singer, songwriter, and his songs are kind of telling a story. They're very emotional. Probably one of the most well known ones, which you may have heard and just didn't know it was him, is called I Built a Friend. It was used in one of the talent shows, American Idol or I think it was America's Got Talent. Some kid did a dance routine to it. But it's just one of those songs that it hits you emotionally. It's like, oh my gosh. So he's another one. My older daughter turned me on to him too, and then I just really, really got into that. I was like, oh man.
Anytime they can play an instrument, I immediately have more respect for
right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Like,
exactly.
Okay, I'll give this guy a chance.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And I don't know if that's necessarily fair. I feel the same way you do.
Right.
Let me say that first off. I do feel the same way you do, but then I find myself like checking myself. Like, is that fair? My son's a musician, my older son, and he his first album that he put out was very acoustic driven. He playing the acoustic guitar and singing more. Loved it. Thought it was great. His next album was like pretty much hip hop. It was all, more electronic. And then his third one he put out was really electronic. Right. Less rap, more singing, but still very electronic. Not really playing any instruments, like pretty much making everything on a computer. And part of me is like, oh man, I feel like there's less talent going in. But that's wrong of me to think that way because I couldn't do what he's doing. I couldn't make all that stuff on the computer. And the songs he's writing are great. They're awesome songs. I mean, I like each album the same, really. I mean, and they're so different. And I think his songwriting is progressing, through with each album. So you have nothing in the recent future that really you just kind of spin the old stuff that you like.
I still listen to the radio, which plays current songs, but I don't remember the last time I've actually felt the need because I don't really download music. Cause I'm still rocking my little iPod. So I don't really download music. My phone is almost full of pictures and whatnot. So I don't really put music on there. And so I'll listen to it, but there hasn't been really anything that's really like, oh, this is amazing. Like Ed Sheeran would have been the last one. This was probably, like 4 years ago, 5 years ago that I first heard him. And then I think I actually got his CDs there was actually CDs and then I was able to put them on my iPod. Now I don't even know if you can still put music on iPod. I don't know if any computer will even run that anymore.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I only do CD. I don't have Spotify. I don't, I buy MP3s and stuff, but I usually still put them on a CD. Right. And then I'll put them I'll have them in my iTunes. I have like a big iTunes library, and then I'll just update my phone and stuff, and it'll. And I like to have all those songs all the time. So I ended up this last time I upgraded the phone, I ended up getting the one that has a terabyte of memory.
There you go.
That's because I was like, oh my gosh. My wife's like, do you need that much? I was like,
fit the whole library.
I do, and I do. Yeah, I have thousands of songs and podcasts and I have other stuff, spoken word, all kinds of stuff on there. But it's all on the phone at all times. So if I'm out somebody, I'll show somebody a song. It's like, oh, hey, check this out. It's right here. But yeah, I don't do Spotify, even though my kids have tried to get me into it. My brother-in-law was even trying to get me on his family plan, or he was like, you don't even have to pay for it, just do this. And then he's trying to do it, and all this weird technological stuff kept happening. I was like, look, dude, I'm just not meant to have Spotify. I'm old school. I'm a CD guy, But yeah, everybody kind of makes fun of me about that. You actually buy CDs still? It's like, yeah, sometimes, a lot of it's thrift store shopping, but I still
buy Blu-rays.
Oh, really?
My friend's like, you're going to buy Top Gun? I'm like, yeah. I'm gonna buy
it. That's right. You had a huge movie collection.
I still do.
And you were selling off a bunch of them at one point.
I was, yeah. Like what I have now is basically like everything that. And then when stupid Blu-ray came along, I'm like, great. Now which ones do I replace? Which ones do I not? And then halftime watching, I was like, do I have this on Blu-ray? I don't think I do. I go on eBay, I get it for like $5. I'm like, sweet. Now I have it on Blu-ray.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, so you probably disagree with me here, but. We do have a Blu-ray player, and we do have a few Blu-rays, and that was mainly because my wife would buy them in the packs. You get both kind of thing. Like it's like, well, might as well just get the Blu-ray. But when I look at a regular DVD and I look at a Blu-ray, someone says, Ryan, can you tell the difference? Yes, I can definitely tell the difference, but it's not like I look over here at the regular and then I look over and I go, wow, this is such a movie experience like I've never had before, to the point that I'm going to go through my whole DVD collection and say, all right, toss it. We got to get all Blu-rays now. It's like, it's not that drastic of a difference.
It's not VHS to 4K.
Exactly. Right. Because really you can tell that, right? I mean, that VHS even to DVD is like a big difference. It's like, that's a whole new format. So it's like going from cassettes to CDs. It's like you're listening to cassettes. It's like you're hearing all this crunching.
You rewind it too many times, and it's like, geez, I'll get the tracking line through there.
Yeah, exactly.
Time to buy a new one.
Yeah, exactly. So, that's funny. All right. How about this might be another difficult one off the top of your head, but could you give me like 5? I'll do it like this: either top 5 albums or top 5 songs.
I can do songs.
Okay.
We got Rocksteady, Mr. Jones, Counting Crows. I freaking love. I don't even know why I love that song. I love that song.
Have you heard the whole album?
My brother had it. I don't think I've listened to another track. I'm sure I have at some point, but I mean, it's always just Mr. Jones, Mr. Jones.
Mr. Jones is great. It's one of my favorite songs of all time. But that album, August and Everything After, is probably in my top 5 favorite albums of all time, of any genre, any band. And that whole album from start to finish is like Mr. Jones. I mean, the lyrics are poetic. They're just, they give you the feels, right? That's the only way I know how to say it. And it's just like, whenever Mr. Jones comes on, dude, I'm singing along. It's just such a great song.
It's,
so you should definitely check out the album if you haven't yet.
I think my brother still has it in my folks' house.
Okay.
Yeah, but I would just listen to that song.
It's
I gotta
a great
check that
one.
out, though.
So, wow. Anyway, that's 2. Sorry, I didn't cut you off.
Crossroads, actually.
By Bone?
John Bon Jovi.
Oh, John Bon Jovi.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
That album is amazing. Like start to finish, that album is amazing.
Okay.
I love that song or that album.
Yeah. That's the second one, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the Crow soundtrack. It's rare to find it's rare for me to find an album, let alone a soundtrack, that I can just put it in and just let it play. And I can just let the Crow play on repeat. That's a brilliant soundtrack.
Refresh my memory on who's on there. I don't remember. It's like 9 Inch Nails.
9 Inch Nails. A bunch of people I never heard of, to be honest with you. Like I don't even know who they are. I just love.
It's kind of like gothic rock, though.
Yeah,
right?
it's like Golgotha Death Tenement or something is on there, and it's just it's amazing though. It's so good. Let's see, another favorite song.
Are you a fan of that movie?
I love that movie.
Okay.
That movie it's pretty much perfect. Like I remember watching it recently, being like, I don't think there's anything I dislike about this movie. Like it's pretty much perfect.
I haven't seen
it
since it came out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, what was that, 94, 95?
Something like that, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, it's a brilliant movie. I love it. I watch it at least once a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Wow. What are we up to, 3? Or is it 3 or 4?
I think that's what you got.
Oh, no, that's 4.
Let's see, one more.
Yeah.
Probably have to go with a song.
That's a hard question.
That is a hard question. Especially like being an 80s one-hit wonder fan, I'm like, how do I pick just one?
Right.
I gotta put Billie Jean on there. I love that. That's easily my favorite Michael Jackson song. I love the video, even though to this day I don't fully understand it.
Right.
It's a weird video. But I love that with the light up steps.
Yeah.
And that video just catapults me back to my parents' living room watching MTV back when they actually showed music videos.
Right.
And it just I love that song. That song comes in, I'm like, oh, this is my jam. It's so good.
That's an epic one.
So good.
Do you remember when you remember Cisco? Thong song.
Yeah,
had that remix that had the Billie Jean beat.
No.
But it was thong song with the Billie Jean beat.
Ooh.
It was good, dude.
That sounds good.
Yeah. It was awesome. It had that bass line.
Yeah.
The Billie Jean bass line.
I remember Cisco from Wild Wild West song. I love that song.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. He does the chorus.
That was the Will Smith song.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. That was a great song. But everybody hated that movie.
I like the movie.
Yeah.
I don't understand why. I mean, it's not good by any means.
Yes.
But it's not supposed to be good.
Right.
They weren't trying to make Schindler's List.
Right.
Like, come on.
Well, that's just it, right? People are thinking like it's supposed to be some Academy Award winning, like deep movie. It's like, no, this is a remake of an old movie, and it's supposed to be funny. It's supposed to be corny. It's supposed to be over the top. That's the whole point.
Like my brother's like, oh, that Spider. They would never be able to do that back in the days. I'm like, you think? Do you think?
But that's what's always amazing to me too, is people say stuff like that. It's so unrealistic. Like we'll be watching like a Marvel movie or something, and something will happen. I wish I had a good example in my head, but something will happen, and they're like, "Yeah, like that could happen," and I'm like, yeah, sure, but a guy shooting webs out of his fingers, that's totally normal, flying around.
I plan on getting hit by gamma rays next week, so I can lift a car.
Exactly. It's like the whole movie is make-believe. What are you talking about, This isn't like some documentary, and you're like, yeah, right. Yeah, like you could actually fly through the air like that. Come on. I did like the Wild West movie.
I like it.
Wasn't,
it's fun.
I like Kenneth Branagh. I think
I find that hilarious. That's the most unrealistic things, that Kenneth Branagh is in Wild West. Like, oh, Henry V is in Wild West. Like, how did they get you to do this movie, dude? Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, he's brilliant in it. I was like, why are you in Wild West?
Right. Maybe he wanted to change.
Yeah.
He wanted to skip the Shakespeare.
I guess that's heavy stuff. He's like, yeah, I want to do this movie. His agent was like, all right, whatever.
It's like, you realize they're not even paying you. That's okay. I'll do it anyway.
That's fine. I'm not doing anything that weekend. I'm good.
Right. Yeah. I think people were maybe expecting something as good as like Man in Black, from Will Smith.
Yeah.
I want to say that was the movie that came out after that. Man in Black.
Yeah.
Oh, and it still holds up.
The second was terrible.
Oh yeah.
I didn't even see the third one. Is there a third one and then international, or is there just international? Because I didn't see international either. That looked terrible.
I think I've only seen I think
there is a third one.
Okay.
I think it is Men in Black 1, 2, 3, then international. Or I'm not even sure if it's called international. I think it is international. I don't know.
I'm not sure
terrible.
Either. Yeah.
But the first one, I love the first one. Yeah. Tommy Lee Jones, come on.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. And one of my favorite scenes in that movie, the first one, is where they have the cardboard cutouts. And he's popping them all.
Yeah.
And he's like, why did you shoot the little girl in the forehead?
Right.
He's like, oh no, this guy, see that? That's normal. He's like an alien guy. That's normal. Little girl walking by herself in the hood at 2 a.m. carrying books. That's not right.
Advanced physics books. Like, she's up to no good.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, that was epic. So good, man. I got to rewatch. I got to show that one to my younger kids. I haven't seen that one yet.
Oh, that's great.
My older two have, but yeah, so funny. So. All right, man. Well, move on to some political jargon.
Yeah.
All right. Opening. Well, I just say, do you consider yourself a political person?
Oh no,
not at all.
No, I can't stand politics.
Okay.
It's just I vote religiously because I mean that's very important. You know, I'll be sitting there. Half the time I have to, like, this last one, I'm like on Google, like what does this bill mean if I vote yes? Like, I want to understand what I'm doing, but the way they're wording, like on the last one, it said a yes vote means this, a no vote means this. I'm like, I've never seen that before. Like, what? No. And I had to Google it. Like, what does this prop mean? And I'm like, okay, the fiscal impact. Okay, this. Okay, I'm gonna go with I'm gonna go with yes. Because it's just
well, they do that on purpose, and that's what's annoying. Like I grew up, like, kind of not grew up, but like my younger years were very much the punk rock mindset of screw the government, I'm not voting, I'm not going to vote for nothing. Well, then I got to the point where I was like, well, I'm sitting around complaining and I never vote. But at the same time, I don't know what I'm voting for. I don't know anything about anything. So I was like, okay, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to read through all these propositions. I'm going to read through all these bios of whatever, the governors or whatever. And that just made me more upset because I was like, I still don't know really what the, because you get the one pamphlet that says, oh, vote for this because it's going to do this. And then you're like, don't vote for this because it's going to do that. And it's like polar opposites.
That's
like,
why I hate the commercials.
Yes. And I'm like, somebody's lying here. Like, you got two things on each side and they're contradictory. That can't be. Like, this bill either does that or it doesn't do that. It can't be both, right? So it was really frustrating. So I just threw my hands up. I'm not voting for this stuff. I mean, I have voted in the presidential elections before. Right. But I'm not sure I've ever voted on anything else. And even the presidential elections, I'm like, do we really know? I mean, because they campaign, they get up there, they say all this stuff that everybody wants them to say.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
And then they get in office, and they usually don't do anything that they promised they would do anyway. So it's like, what are we doing? I mean, really? So my last guest that I had also said no when I said, are you a political person? But I usually say, when I say politics, I don't necessarily mean like presidents and government and that kind of thing, but just in general, hot topic things that are happening in the world. People usually have a strong opinion one way or the other. Like, if we throw things out there, like, I always use the same three examples: racism, abortion, transgenderism, like some of these things, LGBTQ stuff, whatever the case may be. You usually ask people some of those things. And even if you brought it to the government level and you say, okay, in Tennessee right now, they're trying to, make it so that kids under 10 can have reassignment surgery, even if their parents don't want them to. Right. And I'll say something like that. And almost everybody's going to have an opinion about that. They're just going to be like, I don't really care. I'm indifferent. It's like, no, I'm sure you have I'm sure you have an opinion on that, So that being said, are there any kind of things that you do feel passionately about when it comes to those kind of things, like one way or the other?
Well, like racism, for instance, like that. That's very. It's very like right now. I think definitely in my lifetime, like there has not been more division ever than right now.
Right.
Like this country is just divided, like just right down the middle. Like there is so much division, and I think racism is worse than it's ever been. Okay. And like a issue I have with that is like I can't even watch a movie anymore because it's all politics. Everyone's trying to show. That's what I hate. I can't even watch commercials. Well, I've always hated commercials, but commercials they're so much worse now. It's like it's just pandering across the board because. And I looked it up once, and they wherever I got the information was they worded it very well. They're like, one company does this where they have the interracial couples or whatever in their commercial.
Right.
Another company is like, well, this company and this company did it. If we don't do it, they're going to call us racists. So we better do it.
Right.
But the problem with that is it doesn't come, and I have no problem with that, but my problem is it doesn't come off as organic. It's 100% in your face. Like, it cannot be more obvious that they did this, and it just feels so forced. Everything feels so forced. It's like I go to the movies to escape that. Right. And now I can't even go to the movies because it's in there now.
Right.
Because if you don't have this, and this represented, then you're a racist.
Right.
I'm like, no, you're not.
Right, exactly.
And everyone is so terrified of being called that they'll do whatever they have to pander to a very small amount of people. They're pandering to this group here, so this group doesn't call them racist, but everyone else is like, okay, this is terrible because it's all forced, and it's clearly forced, and it's just that's what just drives me nuts. I can't movies. That's why I love movies so much. They're an escape.
Yes.
When I was going through my depression, when I was going through my anxiety, whatever I was going through in my life, I could pay. Well, back then I could pay $5 and I could escape it for 2 hours.
Right.
I'm like, great. I'm with these people now in this make believe land or whatever. And I'm on this journey. This is great. When I get out of this dark theater, this nice, dark, safe space, I can go back to my life and deal with whatever.
Right.
Now I can't even do that.
Yeah. Even if you're going to watch like a drama movie that is realistic, you're still escaping your own drama to watch someone else's drama. Yeah. Right.
And maybe it'll give me a perspective on my drama. Right. Like, oh, they did that. Oh, that's a good. Maybe I should look at it that way. Right. But I can't even do that anymore. It's just like, it's exhausting.
Yeah. Well, I remember back when like somewhere around George Floyd and when the BLM thing got
that really sparked it.
Oh yeah. And like the NBA started putting it on their home courts, like they'd have on the by the what do they call it, the baseline over there, and they'd have BLM, or they'd have and they were allowed to start being political on their jerseys and that kind of thing. And I know a lot of people that were like, you know what, I'm not watching the NBA anymore because they're like, I get home from work, I go out into the world, I deal with the dramas of life all day. I want to come home and crack a beer and watch sports to escape. I don't want politics shoved down my throat. I don't want all these agendas shoved down my throat, And thankfully, I think a lot of people kind of got that gist, and I think they're getting it more so now. Even like you said with movies and in Hollywood and stuff, it's like people don't really want to see that stuff. They don't, and what did they say? You probably know more about this than I do because you're more of a movie guy. But maybe a year ago or so, they're talking about the Academy Awards, and they were saying that they were they were only going to nominate movies to be voted on for the Academy Awards as long as they measured up to like these 5 points. The movie had to have at least one gay character. It had to have one minority character. It had to have one strong female character. Right. There was all these things, and I'm like, okay, all the
guys in the movie have to be idiots.
Well, that's just that's par for the course these days. That's always been my argument with that. It's like you watch today's sitcom. Right. You got the strong mom who all the kids respect and they look up to her. She's pulling the weight, and you got the dad and he's on the floor in the background and he's tangled up in some cord or something because he's a moron. He can't even figure out how to work the phone cord. And the kids and the mom just laugh at him and treat him like garbage.
But you switch those, people are going to riot.
Oh, big time.
Pitchforks, torches, the whole 9 yards.
Yes, or not even that far. If you just reversed it and you had a show like, say, Leave It to Beaver or something where the mom is in the kitchen cooking, and the dad's got the 9 to 5, and he comes home with the briefcase and the tie, and then she's got the dinner on the table and the whole thing. Dude, they'd be in an uproar. And that's not even like mistreatment of a woman, right? Like it is with the man, where they treat him like he's some kind of moron, you know. And it's like, oh my gosh, you know. But with the Academy Awards thing, it's like, yeah, you have to have all these things, and what you're doing is it's like you're totally eliminating any artistic expression through film now, because every time someone sits down to write a script, or every time that they look at what they're doing, even casting, they're looking at the casting, who are we going to cast? It's all political. So there's all these boxes they have to check, and then the art form suffers because of it, and it sucks, and it's just so bad. It's like what was that Ron Howard movie, the guy that just won the J.D. Vance, who just won the government. He's in the government now. He just won his election. I forgot what state he's in. But he wrote that book, Hillbilly Elegy, about his life, and Ron Howard made it into a movie. Did you ever see that movie?
No.
So they were all upset about it because it was showing a young white guy in the South somewhere who was struggling through poverty, and his mom was a drug addict. Amy Adams plays his mom. Fantastic role. Probably the best Amy Adams role I've ever seen. Great. I think she was even nominated for it.
Nice.
And I think it was Glenn Close plays the grandma, if I remember correctly.
That actually sounds vaguely familiar now that you mention it.
Okay, yeah, it's a great movie. It's drama. It's hard to watch in some aspects because of her drug addiction and the way she's treating her family and stuff. It's very realistic. But a lot of people were up in arms about it because it's like, oh, you're presenting this like a white guy actually suffers through hardship. It's like, what? Well, what about white privilege? Every white guy has white privilege. So it's like, how can you, Ron Howard, write a movie about this white kid who's struggling through? It's like, oh my gosh, have we really gotten that bad?
Have you seen that commercial? DearWhiteParents.org. Oh my gosh. I saw it last week. I refuse to go on the website. Like, part of me wanted to do it, but I was like, nope, I'm not going down there. It's like a father and his kid. He's like, son, do you know what white privilege is or whatever? I'm just like, oh no, don't.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
My friend, she was going to school in Portland, and she brought that up, and I was like, Paige, you have nothing to feel guilty about. Like, you have nothing to feel. Everyone is born under different circumstances.
Right.
And just because you're born under better circumstances than this person, that's not your fault. That's nobody's fault.
Right.
And then they talk about the people that grew up in, X conditions. You're like, okay, well, people make it out of there, Like, they didn't ask to be handed anything.
Right.
They worked their butts off and they got out of there.
And they are awesome people.
Yeah.
Usually.
Yeah.
You go, man, that guy is something else. That's the kind of guy you're going to see on a magazine cover someday, right?
I remember talking to my mom, like when my brother called me in a gangster rap. My mom has yet to forgive him for that. But he got me in a gangster rap, and she's like, I hate this music. All they do is talk about killing and hookers and whatnot.
Right.
And I tried to explain it to her. I was like, well, Mom, you have to understand, they're rapping about their world. It's alien to us because we didn't come from that world. And I respect them for using any means necessary to get out of that world. And they did. They used they're just expressing their world, and that got them out of there. And it helped them, it helped their family. A lot of them, go back and help their neighborhood and stuff.
Right.
So, I mean, just use any means necessary to, to get out, and people do it. People just...
Right.
Yeah.
So how do you view, forgive me if I'm wrong here, but you're Japanese, right?
Yeah, half Japanese, half Mexican. Okay,
so half Japanese. So from that perspective of growing up, how do you view that label of white privilege? Do you think that's a real thing, or?
I think it's ridiculous.
Okay.
Yeah. I just think it's absolutely ridiculous. Like I said, everyone is born under different circumstances, and what you're given, that's what you got. You got to work with it,
Right.
You either try and better yourself, or you break the chain and try and get out, or you accept it and you're there. But if you're not doing anything to actively get yourself out of a situation that you don't like, you're not comfortable with, whatever, then that's on you. You know, it's possible to get out, and you know, if you don't think it's possible, try it.
Right.
If you try and it doesn't work, you're like,
Right.
okay, well that didn't work.
Yeah.
Or maybe I'll try this. Maybe I'll try this. But they just get so comfortable. Like, oh no, I'll just take a handout because you know I deserve it because I'm here and you're there.
Right.
Yeah. Even if you worked your butt off to get where you are, nope, I'm still here. And so, since you're in a better position than I am, you need to give me stuff for free that I didn't earn. That's the thing. People in those situations, they think that they're entitled to stuff. No one is entitled to anything.
Right.
Nothing. You were entitled to nothing.
Right.
You work. I grew up working in the fields.
Oh wow.
Yeah, like that's what drives me nuts. Customer service these days has gone down the toilet. It's because nobody wants to work. Nobody wants to work. Like the unemployment thing. Like people, like we lost truck drivers at Ernie Ball because we're like, where's Frank? It's like, oh, Frank's making more money off unemployment than driving a truck. He's not coming back.
Right.
I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. So yeah, I grew up working in the fields. I put myself through college working as a janitor on campus. I'm like, you do what you got to do. The work is out there.
Right.
Just do it. It's not, it's a glamorous work. No, but it's honest work. And it's not forever. It's not your career. You do it. You find something better. You find something better. Oh, I was like, oh, okay, here we go. You do this. You save. You put pennies away if you have to. Do whatever you have to do.
Right.
Then you get you earn what you get.
Right.
And that's the other thing is like with panhandlers, like people are like, you can make good money panhandling. you just have to check your pride at the door and you can make good money doing that. I'm just like, oh my gosh. It's just,
So what do you think so what you're describing is like everybody, like the younger generation, like whatever we call the next generation.
I don't even know what generation we're on now. Yeah.
The next one down from us, basically. What people are like 20 years younger than us, and therefore
because we're X.
Yeah. Well, then you got millennials,
and then you have whatever is after millennials.
Gen Z.
I think it's Gen Z. Yeah.
Okay. I
think that's what we're on.
Okay, but I mean, most of them are like that. It's an age of entitlement. Yeah. It's like, I mean, even with my own kids, I deal with it all the time. I mean, they'll say. Actually, both my kids that are still in the house, they're doing this all the time. Anytime we ask them to do something, well, how much are you going to pay me for that? Right. I said, how about this? How about we give you a place to live and food to eat for the next until you're 18? How about that? Yeah. And here's what they say to me: well, you have to do that by law. Because my kids are saying this. Right. I mean, they're 14 and 12. It's like, are you kidding me? So I look at them and I say, well. Actually, legally, I just have to keep you alive. Right. I can just give you a crust of bread and water. Yeah. I don't have to buy you soda. I don't have to take you out to dinner. I don't have to get you fancy food. I don't have to let you eat, Hostess cupcakes and that kind of stuff. That's all a blessing. That's all a benefit, right? There's no law that says I have to give you that stuff, But they're. So anyway, I guess back to what I was asking you is. That's something that permeates so much of that generation. What do you think caused that to where a lot of our generation, well, let me put it this way. Our parents' generation was even more. Right. They had more integrity. They cared more about work. Mm-hmm. You and I's generation, a little lazier, right? Then you go one generation down, even worse, So what do you think is causing that?
I think parenting, a big part of his parenting, parents want to be their kids' friends as opposed to their parents, them, kid starts crying. Okay, what do you want? Okay, cool. There you go. Yeah. That'll shut them up. And the kid's like, ooh, bingo.
Yeah. It's like Pavlov's dogs, right? Yeah. It's like, oh, I cry and I get a sucker. Yeah. Great. Yeah. I'm going to keep crying.
It's like my last girlfriend. She had a 2-year-old. She was a single mother. And, the 2-year-olds are... They're Einsteins. They're so smart. They understand everything.
Manipulative.
Yeah, and she was a master manipulator. Because and again, my girlfriend at the time, she's a single mother. I get it. She gives in because it's just her. It's she's at the front lines all by herself. Mm-hmm. But it was hilarious because you go to her grandmother's house. That's a different kid. That's not the same kid that we took from this house to this house. Oh no, totally different kid. She knows for a fact what flies over there ain't gonna fly at grandma's house. Right. So she's a little angel over here. You take her back home, and she's blah, blah, blah. And I was like, that's very interesting. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I try half of what she tries over here. Oh no. Yeah. Yeah. And that's another thing is that we knew that there were consequences. Like, you know, we knew not even to try some things. We're like, no, that's not gonna happen.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think I totally agree with you. First of all, I think it is a big part of it is parenting and that whole idea of wanting to be your kid's friend.
Yeah.
You know, but I think there has to be that balance, because I don't think you should necessarily be like a dictator either in your household. I mean, your kid should like you.
Right. You don't want to mess your kid up, you know.
Yeah, you don't want to be like this cold-hearted, like nothing but rules kind of a dad or a mom. But you also don't want to be to where you're buddy with them, and it's like, oh, I'm going to do all the things you're doing. Yeah. Oh, you're 15 and you and your friends want to come over and get drunk and be stupid. Okay, I'll do it with you. And it's like, no, come on. I mean, there has to be some structure, but you don't want to go overboard with it. So I wonder if it's almost like a response to kind of like our parents' generation was more, well, I guess our parents' generation was like the 60s. So that's kind of when the full flower child stuff and the free this, free that. But maybe the one before that was very stern and, you know, here's the rules. And, you know, you got Junior out there at 4 a.m. milking the cows and you got,
18 PC.
Yeah, you're out of here. Yeah. Or go join the military or something, you know. And I'm not saying necessarily I think all of that is right, but I think that the people that came out of that are better people than the ones we're producing today, you know, because like you said, it's so entitlement and just bad at it, just not treating each other well, just looking at yourself first instead of others, like what I want and who do I have to step on to get it, you know, as opposed to, no, what can I do for you? You know, I always said if everybody on the planet just took that one thing to heart, look to everyone else before yourself. Yeah. Can you imagine the kind of world we would live in? You'd have people fighting over like who got to go first. Right. You know, like in lines, you'd be like, oh no, you go ahead. No, you go ahead. No, you go ahead. As opposed to get out of my way. I'm hungry, you know, or whatever.
Well, see, I know a huge part of it is technology. Like, I mean, like my cousins that are, you know, like 7 years younger than me, they're little vampires. They don't leave the house. Mm-hmm. It's all, you know, Xbox, PS12, whatever they're on right now. Like, they don't leave the house. There's no human face-to-face interaction. Mm-hmm. That's a huge part of why I don't think they really care about anyone else, because they don't interact with anyone else. Right. Like, they don't have to. Right. If they interact with anyone, they interact with them on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter book or whatever it is. Yeah, dude. Like that's all. There's no, like, we had video games when I was a kid. I grew up on a farm. We had the Atari 2600. Nice. And you better believe I get out of school, I want to play some Asteroids. Right. So I come home, we play little Asteroids. We're like, all right, cool. You know, the neighbors want to go jump on the bikes and ride around the farm. Like, all right, let me just finish this level. Cool, let's go. Let's go, you know, let's go pick up Mario. Let's go pick up Sandra. Let's hop on the bikes. Let's go. They just disc the field next door. Let's play some baseball. Like, let's do it. Right. It gets dark. The parents call us in. Yo, it's pitch black. Get in here. Right. Whereas now they're like, gotta kick the kids out to get some fresh air, get some vitamin D in you, man. Talk to another human being. Right. Like, I get to the point where I almost want to just outlaw all of that from my house. Yeah. I want to say no phones, no video games, no nothing, no screens. Just outlaw the screens, because it gets to the point where that's all they ever want to do. Yeah. And I was just telling my wife this yesterday, to where my younger son, I'll always say, well, we can play some video games, you know, because there's some certain games he likes to play with me and stuff. So we can do that, but let's do some other stuff. Let's read together. Let's play a board game. Let's go out and shoot some hoops or something or whatever. And he'll usually be like, okay, let's do that. But it's always coupled in there with the video games. And he'll always say, well, which do you want to do first? And I learned that if I say video games first, then he all of a sudden doesn't want to do the other things. Yep. So then I'll be like, well, let's do the other things first. We'll do video games last. But then the hard part with that is that I find that he's trying to rush through the other stuff just to get to the video games. I'm like, dude, this is sad, man. Like, what happened to that? You know, I mean, when I was a kid, you know, we had video games too. I had the NES when it came out, and I was really, really into video games. My mom used to even tell me, I think you're addicted, whatever. And I probably was. Right. But I still did other stuff. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, we watched a lot of TV shows and stuff. I mean, I remember watching sitcoms with my parents when I was growing up. But we did other stuff. You know, we went out of the house. We played catch. We played basketball. We played tennis. We did, you know, whatever it was. And I don't know, man, it's scary. It's just getting worse. I know. Like, it's just getting like I want to buy a new car, but I was looking at a 2018 CHR, and it has all the stupid bells and whistles with all this and this, all the technology and stuff. My friend's car has all the bells because he's all into that technology and stuff. It's like, I don't want that, man. I got a 2012 Honda Fit. Like, I like this technology. I don't like all this because become too reliant on it. You become too reliant on technology. One tiny little thing goes wrong, the whole system and I don't want that to happen. I'm bombing down the freeway at 75 miles an hour. I don't want the electronics to shut down for whatever reason.
I've seen iRobot.
Yeah, exactly. Like Apollo 13, they said that the reason Apollo 13 went bad is because like a little coil on some part of it happened years before it even went in the sky. I'm like, see, there you go. Technology's not our friend. It's there to kill us.
Well, that's like those Teslas that are self-driving.
Oh, no, never.
I'm like, there is no way. I don't care if you go 30 years without any problems.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, no, I go everywhere. I just set it and I take a nap in the back and then I wake up. I'm never entrusting myself to a machine like that.
No,
I don't care.
One time in its 30-year history is going to be when I'm on the 405.
Right.
And then that thing has a glitch. And I was like, oh, what happened to Steve? Oh, yeah, his Tesla turned against him.
He flew off a cliff, landed in the ocean somewhere. Yeah, exactly. It's bad.
Well, like I remember the first time I went on a cruise, 12 years ago, something like that. And it was the first time because I had my smartphone or whatever, and we went into international waters and bam, lost everything. I freaked out for like 30 seconds, and then I was like, oh, this is nice. It was liberating. It was like someone just took the shackle off my leg and just left it in my stateroom. It was so nice. I was like, so this is just a camera now. I could just take pictures of all these nice memories.
Yeah.
And not have to get distracted. Be like, oh yeah, 1 second. I'll look at that cool thing in a second. 1 second, we just finish this tweet or whatever.
Right.
It was actually liberating. And now I enjoy that whenever I go on a cruise and we lose, like, oh, we're going to be at a cell phone range for like 2 days. I'm like, okay, that's fine.
Have you been on lots of cruises?
I've been on like 7.
Oh, dang.
They're amazing. I love them.
Yeah, I've never been.
Oh, you guys have to go.
Yeah, we've always talked about it.
It's so much fun. Like no traffic, no, you don't have to worry about tips because that's in the thing.
Yeah, food's covered, right?
Food's covered, yeah. It's great. It's so much fun. You could book little excursions depending on where you go, and it's fantastic. I love it. Wow. Yeah.
That's fun. Yeah, Bethany's always wanted to do like one of the Disney cruises.
Oh, there you go.
She's a huge Disney fan, so
I've been on Princess is very chill. Like we were like the youngest people on the cruise, so it's a very chill cruise line. Royal Caribbean was fun. That was like, wasn't a party cruise, but that was a lot. They had a rock climbing wall and stuff.
Oh wow.
Norwegian was my favorite. A little too many kids for my taste.
Now you say Norwegian, do you actually go to Norway?
Oh no, it's just Norwegian Cruise Line.
Gotcha.
Like we were going to go to the Bahamas. We went to St. Thomas, Virgin Islands. That was awesome. We were going to go to the Bahamas, but then Hurricane Joaquin canceled those plans. They're like, Hurricane Joaquin is planning to make land like exactly where we're going to make port, so we're going to turn 90 degrees and get the heck out of here. So that was terrible, but
yeah, that's frightening.
Yeah,
water scares me to death.
Yeah, that's what my coworker's like. She's like, I'll never go on a cruise. You can't see anything but water.
Yeah,
I like that. I think it's cool.
Yeah, well, I can't swim.
Me either.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, I can swim, but I don't have very good form. I'm like shark bait. I'm kind of splashing around a lot.
You're making just enough movement so the sharks will see you. Yeah, I've always had a fear of water. Even when I'm on a plane, I have no fear of flying at all. I can fly anywhere.
Right.
If I'm flying over water, it freaks me out, dude.
I can see that, yeah.
In fact, when you fly in from, I guess coming from north into Santa Barbara, it goes down. And it, like their landing strip is like in this weird thing where it's by the water, because Santa Barbara is a coastal city,
right.
And you go down, and as you're descending, you look like you're going to land in the water. And every time, even though I've done it so many times, and I know we're not going to land in the water, I can't help but freaking out. I'm going, oh my gosh, we're going to land in the water. What's going on? Why are we getting so close to the water?
Right.
And then they make this like left turn. And then all of a sudden you see the runway, and then you go and you land. I was like, but they do this weird thing where they're going down towards the water and then they turn.
Right.
Why do you do that?
Yeah.
Do turn first, then show me the runway, and then start going down. You know, I want to see some civilization,
lights.
Right?
Show me those lights.
Yeah. Which is funny because they say if you crash in a plane, it's best to crash into the water. Right, because there's going to be less damage to the plane in a sense. I mean, but then they have all the floaties and all that. But I'm like, I would rather die in a fiery inferno than like be bobbing around in the ocean waiting for a shark to come eat my feet, or whatever. But
that's my main thing. My main thing isn't I'm not so much afraid of dying. I'm afraid of Worst case scenario, I've got like 30 seconds where I know I'm going to die.
Right.
That's what I'm afraid of.
Right.
That's what scares me.
So you want to like quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want, like, if we're going on a plane crash, I don't want to, like Kobe, for instance. Like, my thing with that was, like, I pictured him and his daughter, and that just broke my heart. But they're like, it happened like that.
Right.
Like, nobody knew anything what was going on. By the time the pilot knew what was going on, they were like an inch away from the mountain anyway. So I'm like, okay, that's how I want to go. Like,
you might have heard the pilot, scream an expletive, and then all of a sudden, what is it?
Yeah,
you're gone.
And then that's toast. Like, okay, cool. That's how I want to go out. I don't want to, like, the plane starts going down at 35,000 feet. Everyone's freaking out. The oxygen max fall down. I don't want that.
Yeah, because then you might just die of a heart attack.
Yeah, because then that it's a couple of minutes to hit the water. That's going to feel like an hour.
Right.
So I'm like, nope, I don't want that. I don't want to know I'm going to die. Just take me out, and I'll be happy.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably most of us. I think when we because obviously we're all going to die eventually.
Right.
But it's like you want it just to be.
Yeah.
You don't want to go through like years and years of some illness or whatever. It's just like or even like you said, like a dramatic tragedy like that, like a crash or something, but one that is coming and you have time to think about it. It's like even in a car crash, it's like I want it to be gone.
Yep.
And I think that's all of us. But I mean, so just an interesting question on that. Like, what would be like the worst way to die?
The worst way to die, I think, would be eaten alive.
By what?
Anything.
Well,
tiger.
Something without teeth would be the worst, right? Because
that would be
you'd just get gummed to death.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be like it'd take hours for them to actually get any vital organs, and
Yeah, I used to think burning to death used to be my number one, but then I was like, well, if I were in a building and I know for a fact there's no way I'm getting out of this thing. If I'm surrounded by flames, I'm just going to stand up and I'm going to take super deep breaths.
Right.
Because then I'll just pass out from smoke inhalation. Then I'm good. Then I can fall to the ground. Everybody's happy.
Well, because most people that die in fires, they don't die from the flames. They die from the smoke.
Yeah.
Right. So you just pass out and then your body burns up, but you don't realize it's burning up.
Burning to death, I still think would be the worst way. Like if someone just came at me with a flamethrower, man, because you're inhaling flames. And that's how you die, because your lungs just get torched by oh man.
Yeah.
So that still is number one, but I have a plan for that one.
Right.
Like if I'm like in the ocean, for instance, and that's the worst thing about sharks is they'll take a little nibble and see if they like you. If they like you, they're coming back. So it's just you're looking down, you can't see anything, and then they just boom. Because then that's not going to be quick,
right?
Because they're probably going to take your leg off, and you're going to bleed to death, but it's not going to be quick.
We've all seen Jaws. I mean,
like the woman at the beginning, she's like, "Oh man," I'm just like, So that would probably be the worst way to die, is being eaten alive, because that's not fast, and I can't even imagine that kind of pain.
Right.
Like I fractured my big toe in PE, and I thought I was going to die.
Yeah.
So
I think that's a male thing. I've noticed that like men are much bigger babies when it comes to stuff like that than women are. Have you noticed that?
I wouldn't argue with that.
Yeah, I think it's just true. Even like when we're sick, like we get a cold or we get the flu or something, like this is the worst ever. My wife gets sick, she's still taking care of the kids, she's still up and moving around. There's only been like twice in our entire marriage that I can remember when she got so sick that she was actually in bed for a few days. All the rest of the time she's all over the place. But that's funny, because I always say that too, that my worst way to die would be trying to get away from a shark in the ocean, because again, you got the water, which I'm already scared of, and then you got a shark, which I'm also scared of. But I always thought in my morbid kind of mind, I always thought, they have those at aquariums, like when you some of the places have the shark tube where you get on the conveyor, they're like swimming around everywhere. I always thought to myself, like the ultimate like horror, like fear factor experience would be to do something where it was like that. It was like on a conveyor. And this doesn't work. I know this wouldn't work. I'm just talking like if there was no limits, because obviously you couldn't have water on a electronic. But like say you're on a conveyor, and the walls are like just like the hallway you're going down is just narrow enough like for your body to fit through, and you have walls on each side, and you're standing in water about neck high, right? And then it's pitch black, and you're going through, and then all the lights come on, and then you realize that on your right and on your left are tanks, and they're just full of sharks, right? And just scary, crazy underwater like creatures, right? Dude, I mean, I'd just die instantly because you would feel like you were in the water with them, you know, even though they couldn't get to you. Dude, that would just that'd be like the ultimate. And I always told my wife, we should do that. Like, we should open something like that because people would pay to do that. They would.
Yeah.
They and we could have like a video recording of the whole experience, and we'd sell that to them too. You could sell T-shirts. I survived the whatever, you know, and then we could go to town. Yeah, you know. So I thought that would be really cool. But so it's funny that's your way too. I can't think of any worse way. No, I think I'd even rather have like even though that would be quicker than having like a terminal disease or something. Yeah. But I still think I'd take the terminal disease over with the sheer terror of that, you know, just be running away. But another political thing is kind of opens it up is to say, like, when you look at our world, and you can either say the whole world or the country, either one, whatever is easier for you to talk about. What do you see as one of the biggest, if not the biggest, issue that we face? Like that's getting worse, or that's, you know, an issue that we have to deal with just in general. Kind of an open-ended question.
Right. I'd probably say racism, because again, I don't really know what's going on because I really don't watch the news because it's all bad. It's one of my many problems with the news. The other part is you don't know who to believe.
Yeah, who do you trust?
Yeah,
right?
exactly. You got this guy saying this because so I don't even bother watching it because it just depresses me. Right. But because I'm thinking financial is probably one of them too. But I just see so much division whenever I turn on it's just division. Yeah, that's all it is.
Racial division or more political division or everything. Okay.
It's just, I mean, it's just like, oh, you're left wing, you're right wing, you're liberal, you're whatever. I'm like, dude, why can't we just be people? Right. Why can't we all want the same thing? Why can't we just be people? Why can't we just be human beings?
Yeah, you don't need the labels.
Yeah, and then it's funny because the people that claim that they don't want, you know, division, they're the ones that want the labels. They get so offended when you don't call them what they want you to call them. Right. It's like, you can't have it both ways. Right. Either we're all humans or, you know, you can have your little, it's just.
Yeah. Well, what do you think about that whole idea of colorblindness when they say, like, because it used to be popular to say, well, we should all be colorblind. Like, when I look at you, I shouldn't see a guy who's half Japanese, half Mexican. I should see Stephen Kawano. I should see. Okay,
I think we should celebrate our differences. I mean, it'd be boring if we're all the same.
Correct.
Like, I mean, I was like, no, like, that's no fun.
Well, because that's the new thing. They say, well, you can't be colorblind because then you're denying that person who they are. Right. Like, you should notice that they're different in that way, but it shouldn't be a discrimination.
Be a defining factor. Yeah, it's like, oh, you're half Japanese and Mexicans. Well, I'm also Steve. Right. Like, yes, I mean, I like it when people ask me, you know, in a certain way, you know, if they take interest in like I've never known another half Mexican, half Japanese person. So, you know, when I hear like, oh, my coworker said that he once worked with someone, I was like, oh, that's awesome. Like, I've never met another half, because then you could ask about, you know, I'm curious about, you know, how they were, you know, brought up. Were they brought up in a traditional Japanese or traditional Mexican? I was more brought up in a more traditional Mexican thing. But I mean, you know, we should celebrate our differences, and, you know, it's I love learning about other people's cultures and, you know, other people's religious views and stuff. Yeah. It's great. So let's not pretend that, you know, we're different. Let's not pretend that, let's not pretend that we're all the same. Let's not, you know, but let's also not define the other person. Oh, you're Arab. Like, let's not do that. But, you know, let's take an interest in other people's differences and, you know, educate ourselves. You know, that's the other thing. Just educate ourselves. Right. You know, so it's a fine line between, you know, completely ignoring someone's differences or, you know, defining them by their differences. Right. You know, it's like, oh, what are you? It's like, well, I'm human. If you're asking about my ethnicity, what are you asking about? Like, be specific. Right. You know? Yeah. So. Yeah, and I'm with you, actually. I think to myself every time I hear somebody say something like that, I think, man, if everybody was like that, dude, we'd be doing so much better as a society. It's like, I don't like this person because he's a jerk. I don't dislike him because he's black. I don't dislike him because he's Israeli. He's a jerk. I don't like him.
But here's the sad thing that we deal with today, though, and they have this whole thing called a hate crime. Right. To where, and South Park touched on this pretty funnily back when it first came. Funnily? I just made up a word. Funnily. It sounds like a funnel. Right. But no, but this idea of a hate crime, which means that, you know, I can be a jerk to another white guy. Right. and it's one classification of wrong.
Right.
But if it's a minority, now it's this whole new classification. Where in reality it could just be that I'm a jerk. Right, or vice versa. But did you ever see that South Park episode?
No.
Where, and I haven't seen South Park in years. I mean, this has got to be one of the first couple seasons back in the 90s. But it was the whole Cartman gets mad. There's some kid in the class, it's a black kid, and he does something to tick Cartman off, and Cartman goes off on him or whatever. And I think he hits him. I think he punches him or something. And all the people, when they swoop in, right, like, oh, that's a hate crime. It's a hate crime, or whatever, in this whole thing. And they're in the trial or whatever. I'm probably going to butcher this, but the funny part about it is the guy that is talking to Cartman, he says something along the lines of, the next time that you cause bodily harm to another human being, you better be sure they're the same color you are. You know? And of course, it's South Park being South Park. They're poking fun at it, but it's just, it's true, right? They're showing the absurdity.
That's exactly what it is. If you can parody what you're arguing, it's not a very good argument. Right. You can parody it so easily that it's on South Park.
Yes.
That should tell you something. That should tell you something right there.
Right.
And like, they're like, Facebook is the worst. Like, I see comments on Facebook, I want to respond so badly. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it because it's pointless. I'm not going to argue with this person.
Yes.
I love discussing things with people. You're not having a discussion on Facebook.
No.
It's immediately going to an argument.
Yeah, and what's so lame about that, and this is something I've never understood, and you might agree with me or not, but people will post something, like they will post something on their own page, they start the thread, something very political.
Right.
Something either, to do with racism or something about abortion or something or whatever. And as soon as anybody responds to that post and says something contrary, stop trolling me. Yeah. Why are you trolling me? Stop being a troll. What are you talking about? You brought it up. If you didn't want your views to be discussed, then keep them off Facebook. But they don't mind when, amen, brother, amen, sister, like, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. And they're like, oh, I love this part. But as soon as somebody says, well, let me ask you a question. You hold that belief, but what about blah, 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 blah? And you show something opposing, and all of a sudden they delete you off there, unfriend you, and it's like, okay, you're trolling me. No, I'm not trolling you. You started it. You put it out there to be, I thought, to be discussed. I used to post a lot of controversial things on Facebook, and when I did it, it's because I wanted to have the discussion. Right. I want to discuss it. Like, if I didn't, I wouldn't put it out there. I just keep it to myself. Say, okay, this is what I believe. Great. I don't care what anyone else thinks about it. I'm going to keep it to myself. But if I put it out there, hey, everybody, just so you know, I believe blah, 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 blah. It's just like, I expect somebody to say, oh, do you now? Why? Or I think you're stupid, or whatever the case is.
No, I've had pictures where I was like, oh, this is awesome. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not putting that on my page. Right. It's like, I'm just going to enjoy it by myself, and I'm going to move on.
Yeah. Which is so sad.
Yeah.
It's just, it's so sad that that's what we've come to. And I don't understand why. I mean, I've had people on this podcast where I'm like, I mean, polar opposite beliefs on very controversial subjects. I don't hate them. Yeah. I don't wish any ill harm on them. I hope that I hope that the two of me and them can sit here and discuss it, hash it out. Maybe they'll learn something from me. Maybe I'll learn something from them. Maybe they'll bring up something I never thought of before. Yeah. And I'll be like, oh, wow, that's a great point. Maybe I'll tweak my view a little bit. That's what we should all be doing. Yeah. We shouldn't be so staunchly set in our way. What's that old, don't bother me with the facts, my mind's made up. Yeah. And that so many people have that kind of that philosophy on life. It's like, no, I already know what I know. Yeah. Well, what if you're wrong? Oh, I can't be. It's like, what do you mean you can't be? There's always a possibility you're wrong. I don't care what you believe. There's always a possibility you're wrong. So if you're unwilling to look at any evidence to the contrary of what you believe, then like you said, that's not a conversation. You cannot have a conversation with somebody like that.
And that's all it seems to be. It's not, it's just people trying to change each other. I don't even know if they're trying to I don't know what they're doing, but it's just, they're going at each other like tooth and nail. And it's like, you're clearly never going to change your beliefs. He's clearly not going to change his or hers. So why even bother? This is just wasted energy right here. Like, why even bother? Right. You might be wrong. She might be wrong. He might be wrong. It doesn't matter. Right. Like, just if you have no room for anything, then just don't even bother. Right. That's your belief. Fine. It's yours. That's great. I'm not going to try and change you. Whatever. For whatever reason you have those beliefs, those are your beliefs. Awesome. If somebody else has something different, then like me and my friend, we got into politics one time. We have different views. It wasn't going in a great direction. We just don't talk about politics anymore. That's it. That's a non-subject. It's one of the very few, if only, non-subjects. Works great for our friendship.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah. And I think it's a maturity level you get to where you realize that.
Yeah.
Oh, me and this person can't talk about this because it's too heated. It's if we continue down this road, the friendship's going to fall off the cliff.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, it's just, but so I agree with what you're saying there about, you know, just let people believe what they want. I think though that there's certain topics that it becomes more than that. Like if it's something where it's an issue of the harm of somebody, right? Or, you know, you took like even like the transgender, like I talked about, like what's going on in Tennessee right now and some other states where it's like they're, you know, should a 10-year-old be able to sexually transition when they're under 10 without parental consent?
Right.
There's a lot of passion on that subject, right? It's not easy for someone who, you know, well, I mean, I'll just state where I'm at. It's not easy for me, a person who, in my view, cares about children and looks at the statistics and sees that most kids that transition that early, later on in life, they regret it, you know? Yeah. And for me to just sit back and say, well, you know, they can believe whatever they want over there. It's like, oh yeah, but if in my view, they're hurting children, that's a hard one to let go. If it's just like, oh, that guy likes mushrooms on his pizza, nope, whatever. You don't eat them then, you know, or whatever. It's like, that's an easy one, you know, but.
No, that one, because like with that one, like this might sound weird, but like it seems like, I don't want to say a trend, but it kind of seems like a trend, you know, people doing it because they want to be cool, you know, they want to be, you know, with this group that's getting so much attention right now. And like, I 100% believe in transgenderism. But like I'm like with you, like does this child really understand what's going on? Do they really? Because if they do, great. Right. Then let's help them out. But if they're just doing it to be on the bandwagon or whatever, maybe something's not going right in their life. They're seeing this person over here is getting all this attention and adulation. Oh, they're transgender. Look how brave they are. Well, I'm over here in my corner. I'm not getting any adulation. I'm not getting any of this. So maybe I'm this way. Yes. But maybe you're not, kid.
Yeah, which is a normal childhood response, right? We all go through that, whether it's I need to wear that kind of shoes, or I need to wear that kind of hat, or I need to be a part of this group, listen to this kind of music, watch these kind of movies. We all go through that. We want to be accepted. We want to be loved and liked and have a lot of friends and all that. You don't want to be the depressed loner in the corner that nobody likes. Yeah. So we're going to go for whatever is going to give us that attention, right? And I was thinking just this morning, actually, I was sitting in church this morning, and this is what I'm thinking about transgender stuff. I'm like, okay, what am I doing? That wasn't what the sermon was about. There was nothing about that, but these thoughts go through my head, and I started jotting it down because I started thinking to myself, why is it that if you look at where the most transgender kids are in the country, why is it mainly in certain states and mainly in certain big cities? Why isn't there a huge transgender population in Utah? Right. But there is in California, and there is in New York, and there is in, you know, some of these other very liberal states, right? And someone might respond to that and say, well, Ryan, the reason why is because there are that many kids in Utah, but they're scared to say anything because they know that their religious states or their Mormon state or whatever is going to clamp down on them and not let them go. And I'm like, well, that's one possibility. Okay, I'll admit to that. That's one possibility. Another possibility is that certain states and certain cities are pushing it so hard and giving it so much attention and accolade and like you said, giving them that feeling special and you know and giving them that attention, that there's a lot of kids that are saying, oh, that's me. I want to do that. And I think a lot of them are even maybe confused where they're like, absolutely. Oh, well, one time I was watching a movie and as a guy and I'm watching it, and I thought Brad Pitt was good looking. Hey, maybe I'm gay, right? Or hey, maybe I'm really a woman on the inside, because I thought Brad Pitt was a good-looking man, you know. And I think 20 years ago, 30 years ago, that wouldn't even have crossed their mind. They just would have said, "Oh yeah, that's a good-looking man." Yeah. Because me and my generation, I can look at another man and say, "That's a good-looking guy." Absolutely. It doesn't mean I'm sexually attracted to him or that I want to sleep with him or anything. Right. It's just I can acknowledge a good-looking man. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's like something we've lost, you know?
Yeah. And I think the other side is that it's like with social media, you know, these kids, they look at other kids that are getting all this attention, but they're only seeing the positive.
Mm-hmm. They're
not seeing, you know, if this person really is transgender over here, they don't see the struggles. That's not an easy life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like they see the gay kid getting all these friends and stuff like that, but
right.
He's not, like, that's not all, you know, sunshine and butterflies over there. Like, I guarantee you, he's had really rough time getting to that point. He's going to have, you know, rough times in the future. That's not something that, you know, he's 100%, you know, this is awesome, this is where the party's at kind of thing. There are sides of that this person is not seeing because they haven't experienced it.
Right.
And once they do, they're like, oh, this isn't what I thought. This is different. This is kind of rough at times, you know?
Oh yeah.
They don't see that. They just see all the good stuff. They're like, oh yeah, let's go over to this camp. But it's like, it doesn't work like that, buddy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, because it used to be more of a discrimination, and there's still discrimination against the gay community and against the trans community. Of course, there is. But there is also, it seems to be anyway, more acceptance than there was when we were kids. Like, you know, we all had that. And growing up, there was always the kid you could tell, you know, but you didn't say, I mean, at least I didn't say anything. It wasn't like people were talking about, hey, you know, so-and-so's gay. Right. But, you know, you just could kind of like, yeah, he seemed that way. And then now that we're adults and I'm on Facebook and I have them as friends on Facebook and they're married to someone of the same sex. It's like, okay, always saw that, you know, whatever, it is what it is, you know. But back then it seemed like for them to be open about it would have brought more ridicule, more persecution, to where now I think there's more of a place for them. There's more of a community that's going to, you know, lift them, especially somewhere like California, right? You know, or some of these areas, at least our part of California. I know you go east and it gets a little more conservative, but, so that's what's hard. And when they talk about the suicide rates of the trans community, and which sucks, of course, but then there's always the argument about, well, is it because of the, you know, because they're looked down on, and that's what's causing them to commit suicide more? Or I just saw a statistic recently that was interesting when people talk about, when they're doing the argument about whether or not kids should be able to transition at an early age, and they say, well, you know, kids that are told no are committing suicide. Wow. Right? That's what they're saying. And that's what they've been talking about in all these numbers. And to say, well, the solution is to let them transition, because then at least you have a living person. But then I saw a statistic recently that came out that most people don't want to show you, but it talks about that the suicide rate is even higher for these people after transition. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, bare minimum, what that tells you is the transition surgery doesn't fix whatever's going on with them mentally. If they're suicidal beforehand, that's not the fix for it. Because if it was, you'd be like, okay, all these kids are committing suicide and we need to give them what they need. And then, boy, the suicide rate over here is like dropped drastically. But if it's rising, you know, which is kind of like anything, I think, where we're going through a depression and we always think, or we're struggling with something mental, emotional, whatever. And we always think, well, if I just had that, if I just had this, if I just, you know, and there's always that thing that we think is going to fill the void and it's going to fix our problem. And whenever you study the stories of people that eventually commit suicide, there's usually a bunch of those first. Like it's a bunch of, well, if I just had that, then they get that. Didn't do it. Now I just need that. Didn't do it. And they eventually get to the point where like, there's nothing I can get that's going to fix this. So my only option to them, they think, is to get out of it, you know, and end their life. And it's just, it sucks and it's sad. And I wish we could figure out a better way. I don't know if it's meant more mental health, counseling, whatever. I know that when I went through anxiety counseling, for me, it was huge. I mean, it helped me a lot through a lot of things that I dealt with. But anyway, boy, I just went all over the place. So I don't know how I got there. So back to what you said, because we didn't even really get into this, about fixing the racism. And you mentioned earlier before I even asked you that question, that you think that racism today, I assume you mean in America or maybe the world, is worse than it's ever been. Yeah. So you think that today, like, racism is worse than it was back before the civil rights movement? And
no, it's the worst it's ever been in my life, for sure. Okay. Yeah. Like when I was a kid, you know, it was there, but I just think within the last like 5 years or so, it's gone off the rails.
Okay.
Like just division in general has gone off the rails. And then, racism has just gotten so much worse. And then now you have, ironically, them trying to push, what's the word I'm looking for? Like diversity. They're trying to push it, and I think that's just making it worse.
Right, like critical race theory and some of the trainings that companies have to do, anti-racism trainings.
Yeah,
and that
I think that's
stuff.
actually having the opposite effect. But because I remember when I was, I think around high school or college, I noticed that I was seeing more Asians in commercials. It's like, oh, this is cool. I didn't see any Asians when I was a kid in commercials. I didn't see any. I was like, this is great. We're starting to make some headway.
Right.
Now that's all you see, and I don't like that. You think I'd be ecstatic, but now I don't like that at all. I'm like, no.
You're like, no more Asians.
Yeah, like it felt earned. It felt we had earned that. We were making our way with our own steam. We were getting in it because we earned it. I'm like, this is great. I don't want that handed to us. It has no value. And I hate to say that because those are my people. Like I should be celebrating that. I'm just another, and I'm just annoyed.
Right.
I'm just like, oh, here we go. Now nothing feels special.
Right.
It just feels just handed.
Yeah.
And it's like I haven't watched the Academy Awards in years because when I was a kid, there was 4 nominees. I mean, it was a big deal to be nominated. Just to be nominated, it was a huge deal to win.
4 per topic, you mean?
Yeah.
4 per category?
Yeah, now there's like 12 nominees. Now you have movies that have no business being nominated, but they're like, we got to fill these slots, man. We have 12 slots to fill, or however many slots there are. So it's like, well, let's give this person a nominee. Let's give this movie a nominee. I'm like, really? And now it's just like, it's not even an honor to be nominated. It used to be Oscar-nominated actors. I'm like, ooh, what is this? Now it's like, who isn't nominated?
Yeah.
Like, everyone's nominated. So when you take that away, nothing feels earned. Nothing feels special. It all just feels like pandering.
Yeah.
I'm just like...
Well, and I wonder if that's because of what you were saying earlier about, like, for the Academy, whatever they call themselves, the community over there that does all that. They look at it and they know that if they don't nominate certain people, it's going to be called racism, like or sexist or whatever. Like there was the one year they were saying like, well, not a single female director's movie was nominated, and the go-to is always, obviously that's sexist. I'm like, well, could be. The other option could be that all the female movies sucked. Yeah. That's also an option. Yeah. They don't even look at that. They're like, no, that can't be it. That can't be it. I mean, because these movies were great. Says who? Yeah. Did anybody actually watch these movies? I mean, no, because like you said, it's become so political. Yeah. That it's like, oh no, we can't. We got to cast this guy. We got to cast this guy. We got to have at least one female director and one gay director and one all this stuff. It's like,
that's another reason why I don't like watching the news, because they're like, oh, the first female whatever, the first minority whatever. I was like, well, that seems like a coincidence. Like, why do you think that is? Yeah.
Well, and like Biden, like flat out saying before with
the justice.
Even before the justice, like Kamala Harris. Right. He says, I'm going to choose a black woman as my vice president. Yeah. I'm like, okay, let me state first of all, not choosing a vice president because they're women and black, totally wrong. Right. But by the same token, choosing them because they are a woman and black is also wrong. Yeah. It should be, I'm going to choose somebody who I think's best going to run the country with me. Absolutely. It doesn't matter what they look like.
There was one, I don't even know what thing they were running for, but there was an Asian guy in there.
Oh, Andrew Yang?
Yeah, him. I was like, would I like to see more Asian representation in my government? Absolutely. Right. However, if you have this guy over here who's also half Japanese and half Mexican, but he doesn't know his butt from his elbow, you have this white guy who's been doing this for 40 years. Yes. Huh. I think I'm going to go with this guy.
Yeah. But see, the sad part is a lot of people wouldn't. Exactly. You know, it was like, I always go back to when Obama was elected and they were talking to Samuel Jackson. Now, I love Samuel Jackson as an actor, great actor. Not a big fan of him in the personal life area, but he actually said that. He says, I voted for Obama because he's black. And I thought, oh my gosh, really? Yeah. I mean, it's harsh to say, but if I was ruler of the world, I would revoke his right to vote. Yeah. I don't think anybody that votes for that reason should be allowed to vote. Absolutely. Because that is dumb. That is just dumb. That's like, I mean, again, back to Biden. It's like saying, I'm gonna pick her because she's a woman. Right. And then you go to the Ketanji Brown, the Supreme Court justice. Yeah. I picked her because she's a black woman. Yeah. What?
Yeah.
What? And then you notice when she was first nominated. I mean, I know you said don't really follow politics too much, but when she was first nominated, there was all kind of stuff about question and answers with her, and we were getting all these answers from her. Maybe it was before she was actually nominated, but all this stuff, bonehead answers,
My friend
like the
told me that.
most
Yeah.
boneheaded answers, and some stuff she wouldn't even answer.
Yeah.
Like the "what is a woman?" That was probably the most popular thing. Can you tell us what a woman is? Well, I'm not a biologist. So like, but she knew if she said, she knew no matter how she, it was a setup question. I totally get it. It was a setup question because no matter how she answered it, she was going to get crucified on one side of either fence, right?
Yeah.
Totally setup question. But yeah, just dumb things like that. And it's like, okay, should this person really be a Supreme Court justice?
Yeah.
And then same with his new press secretary. What's her face? Jean Pierre or whatever. Same deal. And she was even saying when she was first in there, she's like, well, I'm just glad to be the first black woman, lesbian press secretary that's ever happened. It's like, like, what?
Like, we hit the lotto with this one, get her in there.
Yes, right. It's like, well, I mean, if that's not qualifications for a government official, I mean,
it's like, well, how long has she been doing this? 6 months?
Yeah.
Almost a year? Get her in there.
Yeah, like she hasn't. We just found her on the street.
Yeah.
We just did some polls. We're looking for a black gay woman. Can we find one, please? Horrible, dude.
Yeah.
So bad. But again, back to the racism thing. So when you say it's worse now than it ever has been, do you actually back a little farther? When you're talking about seeing the Asian people in commercials and you're like, oh yes. Now before that, were you conscious of the fact? Like, were you always thinking to yourself, how come there's no Asian people in commercials?
No, I was conscious of the fact that growing up, I had like one Asian friend my whole life.
Right.
Like that was it. And that was fine with me. It wasn't even an issue. I was just like, oh, that's funny. There's no Asians around here.
Right. I also had one Asian friend growing up.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. So I mean, like my friend wanted to join, my friend's girlfriend wanted me to join the Asian Pacific Club in high school, but I didn't want to, probably because I had social anxiety. So I was like, a bunch of new people. I don't think so. Right. Now looking back, I'm like, I should have joined. That would have been cool.
Right.
But yeah. But no, as far as the commercials thing, like it just hit me when I was in my parents' kitchen and the commercial came on and I was like, it just consciously hit me like right then. I was like, oh, I actually see more Asians in commercials. This is cool. All right.
Right.
But again, it felt earned. It felt that we had earned that.
Right.
And that's what I liked. Like, if somebody wanted to make me vice president, some half Japanese and Mexican, I was like, I wouldn't feel honored.
Right.
I'd feel like, I don't want it for one thing, and I didn't earn it. It's like the people that take steroids to win, whatever. It's like, I won. It's like, well, you kind of didn't because you're hopped up with steroids.
Yeah, you cheated.
Yeah. I do centuries on my bike. Like at the end of that bike ride, I'm dying. I'm at death's door. But I feel great because I know that I did it. It's that sense of accomplishment that I did it. I trained for this. I did everything in my power to do this, and I did it. And that felt earned.
Right.
Nobody handed me that medal at the end of that century. Like I earned that medal. That's my medal.
Right. Right.
That's what I don't like. Everything is just handed to everybody.
Right. So you don't mind if they like mention it, like if they say, let's say our next president is of Asian descent. Let's say even more so. Let's say he's half Japanese, half Mexican, just like you are. So you don't mind if they mention that. You don't mind if they say, well, he's the first half Mexican, half Japanese president we've ever had. You just don't want them to exploit that. You don't want that to be the reason he was elected.
Yes.
You want him to be like an intelligent, caring person who has the country's best interest in mind.
I want him to be the type of person that I would vote for if he was a Martian.
Right.
Like if I'm looking at the ballot and like, I like this guy. Like this guy, I like him too, but it's just a little bit. This guy, I'm 100% confident he is the best person for this job.
Right.
That's my thing with politics. You vote for the least ridiculous person.
Right. Which clown do you want?
Exactly. Yeah. It's like I don't like Pennywise.
Yeah.
Let's go with this guy.
Let's go with Bobo.
Yeah, this guy's gonna screw us over the least out of all 5 of these people or whatever.
Right.
So that the person that I'm most confident giving my vote, and that's the thing. It shouldn't matter what they are. Like I'll vote for a Martian if he's gonna do the best job.
Right.
It's just like put the person that's most capable of doing the best job for the majority of the people.
Yes.
Not everyone's going to be happy.
Yes.
That's a given.
Yes.
What's going to make the majority of the people in this country happy and better off because this person is in office?
Right.
I will vote for him 24/7.
I'm glad you worded it that way, because it seems like these days what people are looking for is what's going to make it the best for me.
Exactly.
And that's why you got things like when people talk about, candidates that buy off people, and let's give stimulus checks, let's do all this kind of thing. And it's like, well, I like this guy because he gave me a $5,000 check. It's like, well, yeah, but that helps you out.
Right.
But first of all, where's the money coming from?
Yeah.
Whose pocket did that come out of? You might be screwing some other guy over, you know, or whatever. But that's exactly what we should be looking for. We should be saying, well, what's going to be the best for everybody?
Yep.
And like you said, some people might be ticked off. Well, I don't like that. Okay, but most of the people do. Yeah. Or whether or even if you don't like it, it's still going to be better for you. Yeah. Right? It's like with your kids. No, you're not going to like this. You're not going to like eating broccoli instead of ice cream for three meals a day. Right. But in the long run, you're not going to be sitting in the bathroom with a stomach ache for 2 days because you ate nothing but ice cream or whatever. You know, I mean, so yeah, you might not like it, but it still might be the best for you. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's totally awesome that you worded it that way. Yeah. So as an adult now, do you as a Mexican Japanese guy, do you feel like you personally experience a lot of racism in our area?
I haven't experienced. It's funny because it's like the only time I ever experienced racism, and I remember it like it was yesterday. This couple Mexican kids are making fun of my eyes.
Oh, really?
The whole slanted thing.
Oh, yeah.
I was at recess. A couple of jerk Mexican kids.
Yeah.
In 4th grade, I think.
Okay.
And I mean, it's literally the only time I've ever experienced racism, and I still remember it to this day. Like aside from that, no.
Right. So it's not a personal thing for you, but so I guess I'm trying to get to the heart of the question or the statement you made about it being worse now than it's ever been. So when you say that, like, what do you mean by that? Like, what kind of examples can you, like, when you watch the news or you look at whatever's going on, obviously not in your own life per se, but just elsewhere in the country that makes you make that statement?
The main thing is the whole thing with the police.
Okay.
Like that's another reason why, and then maybe I should watch the news, but that's another reason why I really don't like watching the news is because like the whole defunding the police thing, it's like, oh, and then they always make a point of saying a 19-year-old black man was killed by a white officer or a police officer, whatever.
Right.
It's like, well, what if he'd been Israeli? What if he'd been Afghani? Would that make the news?
No.
Just because he's black, all of a sudden it's the cop must be a racist.
Right.
And then the family's like, oh, my son would never do that. It was like, well, the cop doesn't know your son, ma'am.
Right.
The cop knows that he's chasing after someone who's running.
Yes.
They're in a dark alley.
Yeah.
The cop would like to go home to his family as well.
Correct.
He doesn't know. He's had training. Have you had training? No, you haven't. He's been to the academy. He's going by his training. He wants to go home. He doesn't know what this person is reaching for.
Right.
Maybe he's reaching for his wallet. Maybe he's reaching for his gun. He's not going to take that chance.
Right.
That's what.
So you feel like through the media, it's polarized. Like they're pushing a certain side of it to where.
Oh yeah, it's fear mongering. That's what the media is. That's another huge reason why I don't watch it. It's fear mongering.
Right. And
it's just.
You see it with that. You saw it with COVID. You saw it with all these things. Right.
Yeah.
It was just that I don't know why they want us afraid.
Yeah.
But that's when you get people like LeBron James making statements like, "I'm scared to leave my house.
Right.
I'm going to get shot by the police."
Yeah.
It's like, really, LeBron, are you really scared that you're going to get shot by the, I don't think so. But an example of what you just said that happened, I don't know if you remember this or not, but I'm going to butcher this again. My brain doesn't remember stuff very well, but it was, I want to say it was a shooting that took place in a shopping grocery store somewhere. I don't remember where. And I think a few people were killed, a couple of people were injured, and it was all over the news at first. And he was being presented as it was a white man that went in there and shot everybody. Well, as the news came out, it turned out that he was Saudi Arabian or something. I forgot what, but he wasn't a white guy.
Right.
As soon as that news dropped, you didn't hear about that story anymore.
Yep.
At all. And you're right, because they will specifically say a black man was killed by a white cop.
Yep.
You'll never hear it the other way around.
Yep.
Even if it's true, like you don't hear, oh, a white man was killed by a black cop or any other minority. You just don't hear it, you know, and you have to ask yourself, why is that?
Yeah.
And why is it that the first jump to is always like, it's almost like any time, it doesn't matter what the circumstance is, it doesn't matter what happened beforehand. If a black person dies at the hands of a white police officer, it is automatically racist and hate crime.
Yep.
And you're like, wait a minute, what, you don't even know the story yet. What if the black guy was running at the cop with a gun in his face, getting ready to pull the trigger? Doesn't matter.
Yep.
Still racist. It's like, what's the cop supposed to do?
Yeah.
He's supposed to be anti-racist and just die by the criminal who's running at him with a gun pointed at his face? You know, but then they always say things like, well, he was unarmed. He was unarmed. But like you just said, does the cop know that?
Yeah.
If he tells him to put his hands on the steering wheel and he's not doing it, he's still reaching for the glove box and the cop shoots him. And then later on, they check the glove box and there was no weapon in there. So then it's like, oh, it was obviously racism.
Right. Yeah.
What?
I'm a minority. I've never once felt any kind of danger.
Right.
Because guess what? Cop tells me to do something, I instantly do it.
Exactly.
I want him to throw me on the ground so I could sue him.
Yes.
But I'm not going to do anything stupid that's going to put my life in danger.
Right.
Like, no.
Yes.
Yeah, he tells me to get out of the car. I'm like, I don't think I did anything wrong, but I'll get out of the car.
Right.
I'm not going to peel out and take him on a 90-mile-an-hour car chase and then wonder why I got shot.
Right.
I'm like, no, I'm going to do exactly what he tells me to do because I have nothing to fear because I didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
I'm 100% innocent. Innocent people do not do stupid things like that.
Right.
And then they're always saying, like, we've lived in fear of cops our entire lives. I was like, well, just do what they say. If there really is police brutality involved, then that is going to be documented, especially nowadays. They have the body cams on. You can't get away with anything. They have the dash cams. They have the body cams. If all these cops are indeed crooked, it should be a cakewalk to get them fired because you're going to have video on evidence that they are mistreating you. They're throwing you against the wall and you did absolutely nothing wrong. But if that video shows you clearly reaching super fast for the glove box for something, and I'm kind of on the cop side now because I'm putting myself in his shoes. Like, what's this dude doing? I pulled him over for a speeding ticket. Now he's acting all shifty on me. Like, I'm not feeling too very safe myself. So
I mean, it's got to be a scary job.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you don't know. I mean, every
how
day
many cops get blown away because they pull it because he had a busted taillight, man.
Yeah.
He gets 2 in the chest.
Right.
I'm like, come on, man. You're not a cop. Put yourself in his shoes.
Right. But it's almost like they don't because it's almost like, well, cops are inhuman. I don't care about cops. No, he's a family man. He's got, and they always say that. It's like, oh, this guy leaves behind a wife and 2 young children. It's like, oh my gosh, dude, really? Over like you said, over a busted taillight?
Yeah.
It turned out the guy had a warrant out for his arrest. It turned out the cop didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's like, it's all this just misunderstandings and stuff. And it's horrible. It's
and
like,
the ironic thing is that what they're saying is that all the cops are corrupt, they're all racist or whatever. I was like, well, that's kind of funny because you're saying that that's how they think about you, but you think the same way about them. Like in your head, they hate all of you, but you're just doing the exact same thing.
Right.
So it's just,
Right. But it's almost like it's okay in the reverse.
Yeah.
They make it sound like anyway, and I've had a lot of people tell me, well, that's just because of years and years and years of, whatever. And then you get into the reparations discussion and that whole thing. And it's like, look, I think racism sucks. I look in the past of our country, was there some racist stuff going on? 100%, absolutely wrong across the board. And I will call all of that out as wrong. But I also don't think it's right to somehow demand that reparations out of somebody that had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, I didn't own slaves. My ancestor, my grandma, nobody I know in my family that I knew personally owned slaves. I mean, maybe you go back hundreds of years. Maybe they did. I don't know. Yeah. It's got nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
I didn't know my great whatever grandpa, I had no idea,
Yeah.
So it's just like, but then they'll say, oh, but you owe because you're white. And my response to that is, well, isn't that kind of racist?
Right.
You're judging me for something based on the way I look.
Right.
Isn't that what you're fighting against? You're trying to say people shouldn't judge you because of the way you look, which I agree with, but why are you judging me that way then?
Yeah.
It's reverse. It's okay if it's the other way around.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
So it's just bad. But I mean, I said before on I think one of the first episodes we did on this, I said, the whole idea of the cops and the way they present it. And it's like, has anybody ever seen a situation where a person, minority or not, but for the case of this scenario, a minority, doing absolutely nothing wrong, following all the directions the cop told them? Put your hands on the steering wheel. They put their hands on the steering wheel. Okay, get out of the car. They get out of the car. They're like, oh, well, what's wrong, officer? What can I help? We're just going to search your car. Oh, okay, great. Go ahead. All that's going great. And the cop just turns around and just shoots them.
Yeah.
Where is that? I mean, if it was really all these white cops looking for minorities to kill every day, you would see a lot more of that, especially with the body cams, right? It's like, oh, this guy's not doing anything wrong, but hey, he's a minority. Let's pop him.
Yep.
Yeah,
no, it's like I didn't just drag you out of church, sit next to your grandmother.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. You're doing something.
Yeah.
Or else he wouldn't have pulled. Well, I guess I shouldn't say that. Sometimes they profile.
Yeah.
That's true. I have cop friends. I've asked them. They do profile.
Right.
And I mean, that's a touchy subject, I know. And it's not like I can sit there and say, oh, I totally agree with all profiling. But if you have a certain MO and a certain look, and 90% of the time turns out to be a problem, or what they look like, what they're doing, and all those factors come into play, you might want to pull them over. Because if when you pull them over, if 90% of the time you find something or something, you stop some crime from happening, you're going to keep doing it. 10% of the time, you're going to find an innocent guy. And he's going to comply. You're going to search. You're going to find he's innocent. You're going to say, okay, thank you. See you. Yeah. Send you on your way.
Pulled out of a line of TSA in Canada.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was me and my buddy, and he got through fine. He's like, oh, looked at my whatever. It's like, oh, go in this room here, sir. I'm like, oh, okay. And they asked my friends, like, you with him? I'm like, well, yeah. He's like, go with him. My friend's like, what'd you do? I'm like, nothing. I didn't do anything. But I went to the little room. The guy pulled all my stuff out of my bag and then left. And he said, oh, you can put it back now. I'm like, you pulled everything out of my bag. You want me to put it back? He left. There's like this two-way mirror. I know they're watching us. So here I am putting my stuff back in there.
Yeah. They want you to reach into one of the pockets or something, pull out the drugs, and then hide it somewhere. You know?
So you just stand there for another like 15 minutes, and then he finally comes out. Like, okay, you're free to go. I'm like, okay, thanks.
Oh my gosh.
I just grabbed my backpack and I left.
That's nuts, dude.
Yeah. But I was like, I'm not going to run. That'd be the absolute worst thing I could possibly do.
Because then you look guilty.
Yeah.
Right?
It's like, I don't have anything in my bag. Like, you don't have to be a jerk and pull everything out. But I mean, I didn't do anything wrong. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to ride this wave. And guess what? Nothing happened. I left. Great vacations.
Right. Yeah. Some of those TSA guys are like, they just treat you like you're animals.
Yeah.
They throw all your stuff out. They're doing a not strip search, but like a pat down search on you. And you started hearing all these stories about, hey, there's some grabbing going on there. It's like, what's up with that? Is that necessary?
Right.
I mean, come on now, especially with like women and stuff. It's like, what are you feeling for? What do you think you're going to find down there? It's like, I think there's a lot of wrong stuff going on there, but, anyway. All right, man. Well, let's get into some spiritual stuff. It's been years since I've even talked to you about this. So I mean, you might be in the same place, you might not be. So why don't you tell me where you're at as far as your spiritual beliefs or lack thereof?
I may have been an agnostic when I was at the library. I'm pretty much a full-on atheist now.
Okay.
Like, it's pretty much just,
Okay. What pushed you from agnostic to atheism?
I think what I've been through since then and what I've seen my friends go through since then, just like, bottom line is that like I know we discussed this when I was at the library, is that to me it's more comforting if it's all chance, because like what I've gone through, what my friends have gone through, it's really bad stuff, and I'm like, okay, if this isn't all just chance, then it seems like a really bad plan for good people to go through this and have because I watch a lot of true crime. Right. There's some horrific stuff going on out there. It's just
horrible.
Bad. Yeah. Some of it I can't even watch, and I love true crime.
Right.
I'm just like, okay, this is a bad plan. Like, even if there's a whole side that we're not seeing, it's just a bad plan. So to me, it's more comforting to know that it's roulette. It's just, we're little balls on the roulette thing, just spinning around that wheel. whatever happens, because then I'm not destined for this. My son, who I don't have, but if I had
I was going to say, you have kids now?
Like my son, if I had one, isn't destined to be murdered by this serial killer when he's 9 or something. Like,
right.
It's more comforting to know that, and to know that, you know, whatever path I'm on, I can change it. You know, like when I was going through my depression, I honestly thought that was it. I honestly thought I'm never getting out of this, and then I was able to get out of it. You know, so it's like being like destiny and that whole being locked in thing, that I don't like that. It terrifies me for one thing, and I don't like it. It's more comforting.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. So if you talk about destiny, you sound like more like a determinism, right? Like you have no say so in anything.
Yeah.
Everything that's going to happen to you is out of your control, and it's all like predetermined. Yeah. So is that what you're saying, and that's what you're kind of against?
Yeah, it's funny because to me that is. It kind of doesn't make any sense, because to me that's like a lack of control, but I like the lack of control that I have now, because there's a lack of control with destiny and there's a lack of control without destiny, but I prefer the lack of control without destiny, because at least I feel I'm in charge of the decisions that I'm making, at least, whereas with the lack of control with destiny, it doesn't matter what decisions I make because I'm predetermined to go here anyway. So it's kind of like, and then that's the other thing. It's like, what's the point? Like, we're on this earth for like a blip.
Right.
Like, if we're on this earth for whatever, 80, 90, 100 years, but then we have eternity, like, what's the point? Like, why are we on this planet? And then that opens up a whole other thing that I got into with my coworker recently, is that, like, what makes us feel like we're so special just because we happen to be the dominant species on the planet? I've never heard of a dung beetle heaven, or anything like that.
Because we have thumbs.
That's true.
That changes everything.
That's true.
Dude.
We do. Yeah. My dog would kill for these bad boys.
So it's hard for you to attribute, from a determinist philosophy, it's hard for you to attribute the things that you've gone through and your friends have gone through to a loving God. It's hard for you to say, if there is a God and he loves me and cares about me, then why would he determine and dictate that I would go through such horrendous things? And
not just me too. Like, just, I mean, the whole human race, we kind of suck.
Yeah.
Like, we do horrible things to each other. And like, if there was a God, my feeling was always, if he or whatever is up there, I really hope he has nothing to do with what's going on here, because that would be fine. I would be okay with that, because, you know, he gave us free choice or whatever. And I like that. I'm like, okay, cool. The world is horrible because we have free choice. We choose to do these horrendous things to each other. Then we're going to get judged later on.
Right.
That's fine. I have no problem with that. But if he has anything to do with what's going on here, I don't like that. Like, I think that's horrible. Like when I watch these true crime shows, it always drives me nuts when the family's like, oh, you know, thank God we finally caught the guy, and by God's grace, he's now in jail. He's not going to hurt anybody. I'm like, okay, my problem with that is that you're thanking God that you caught him, and that, you know, you're thankful for God's intervention that we caught him and he's in prison. He's not going to hurt anybody. That's great. But at the same time, if you're thanking God for his intervention, why aren't you angry at him that he didn't intervene and not let this thing happen to your daughter to begin with? Wouldn't that have been better?
Right.
Now my daughter's gone and she went through a horrendous death, but now we're thanking God that her attacker is, by the grace of God, in jail. I'm like, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Well, they'd probably agree with you and say, would that be better if my daughter didn't die?
Right.
Of course they'd say, well, of course it is. Right. Of course, if I got to choose between the two, I'd rather have my daughter here than have her gone and find the killer. But I think, given the option of your daughter being gone and finding the killer, and your daughter being gone and not finding the killer.
But see, that's exactly my point, is that it would be better if there was zero intervention on God's part at all. And then it's just chance. Right. It's like, well, that sucked that she died, but hey, we caught him. Right. So that's good.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. So there's different philosophies for people that believe in God. There's some that would say it's called a determinist position, where they believe that God literally forces or makes things to happen. And if you hold that view, then what you're saying is, you know, God designed Jeffrey Dahmer to rape and murder young men and eat them. Right. That's what you'd be saying. And, and if that's the position you hold, then you look at the God that's doing that and you think, what a monster. Right.
Yeah.
But then there's those that hold to more of a free will, which would probably more sum up where I'm coming from. I do believe in free will. I do think God is in control of all things. And I do believe that he has the power to stop anything at any time. So when you bring back to Jeffrey Dahmer, could he have stopped Jeffrey Dahmer at any point? Absolutely. And then you say, well, why didn't he? So then it still sounds like kind of a monster of a God, where you're like, well, how could he allow those horrendous things to happen to those young boys, you know, or in the scenario you used, into that young girl? How can he do that? You know? So for me, I view it as he is in control of all things, but within what he's in control of, he's also given us the free will. So I don't believe that God is up there smiling down when he watches somebody walk into a school and shoot all the kids up. And he's going, oh, this is great. Where's the popcorn? Let me watch this from up here. I couldn't believe in a God like that. I couldn't. I'd be with you on that point. I'd be like, if that's who God is, I don't know about that. But we do. But from my perspective and my viewpoint is he does allow that. So then I have a dilemma, and I have to think, well, why does he allow that? Right. And even though that's on such a grander scale, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about before, where you were talking about your depression and how you were in a state of mind where you were just like, this is the worst. I would rather be dead than be in this situation I'm in. But once you came out of it, I asked you if you were glad it happened, and you said yes. So my view of God is that not only does he know all things, he knows every decision I'm going to make, every decision you're going to make. He knows the way it's all going to work. He knows the day I'm going to die. He knows everything about all that. But he also has our best interests in mind. And it's not always easy, you know, I mean, I can't even imagine being one of those parents whose kid is abducted and all those horrendous things happens. I can't even imagine that. But I do know that people respond to those things in different ways. Some parents that do that, and I'm sure you've seen these videos if you watch true crime enough, because I do too. But you'll see some of these parents in the courtroom will publicly forgive the man who raped and murdered their little girl. It blows me away too, because I think to myself, there is no way. I'd be more like the guy in the the gymnastics guy that was molesting all those young girls for so many years, and then one of the dads was in the courtroom, and I don't know if you saw this clip, but he asked the judge, he says, can I just have 10 minutes alone with him? And the judge goes, sir, you know I can't do that. Okay, just 5 minutes then. Just let me have 5 minutes with this monster. Sir, I cannot do that. I cannot allow it. And then the dad jumps over the thing and just rushes the guy, and all the people got him before he got to the guy. But I'm like, that would be me. Like, you'd see me on America's Most Wanted as the guy who went on a rampage and went and burned that guy's house down, because I'm sorry, you do that to my kid. But that's why I think that the people that are able to do that, I think that's something where God does intervene and he changes their hearts and their minds in that moment to where they're able to forgive, because I don't think that's a human trait to be able to forgive somebody after something like that. So I just wanted to make sure that at least where I'm coming from, that's where I'm at. So when you're talking about determinism, and it's hard to attribute those things that happen to you and your friends to a loving God, as far as if God's causing those things to happen, I'm with you. I don't believe that's what God is doing. So anyway, I just wanted to make sure that you understood that I'm not saying that I think God causes all that stuff to happen, as I guess where I'm going. So if we take circumstance, let's remove the whole idea of Christianity. Let's remove the Bible. Let's remove really any mainstream religion, right? Any group of people that has said, we've figured out God, here's our book about why. If we get rid of all of that and we just put it back to a base level of atheism versus agnosticism versus deism, I guess. And I say deism because I'm just talking about just a belief in something.
Poly, mono, anything.
Right? And you look at something like the intelligent design theory, right? Is that something that you also say, no way? Like,
what's that?
That's the theory that we're not going to put a name on it. We're not going to say it's Jesus. We're not going to say it's
the higher
Allah.
power.
Well, it's something with intelligence that created everything. It's the idea that from an evolutionary standpoint is something from nothing, right? Like there was no intelligence. It was just primordial soup that an amoeba popped out of one day, totally undirected, unguided, no intelligence, just boom, there it is. And that eventually evolved into a fish. And then, and I'm sure I'm skipping a lot of organisms, but you get my gist.
Organism.
Yes, exactly. Which eventually becomes us, right? Over billions of years, right? But it's an unguided process. And that theory would say that there's no intelligence behind it. It just spontaneously appeared one day, right? To where intelligent design would say, no, we're looking at the evidence. We're looking at, even if we hold an evolutionary belief, right? But we still think that something intelligent must have at least created that amoeba to start off the evolutionary process. Something must have created that primordial soup and the ingredients within it that's going to create the amoeba to begin with, right? So when you hear those two theories, do you kind of line them more up with like intelligent design, or would you say no, spontaneous arriving just makes more sense?
See, I wish I knew more about how all of that came to be, like how the first tiny little single cell organism. I do know there was an explosion of, and that like an explosion of evolution, and all this just like happened, like bam,
right. Bang, actually.
Bang, actually, yeah. Bang. Yeah. See, I wish I knew more about that. Like, to me, it's more, because I go by like plausibility. Like, to me, it's more plausible that, because there's the theory that aliens created us, and we're like their little third-grade aliens, little science project.
Right.
To me, that is more plausible than an all-seeing, all-knowing God snapping his fingers in a week. We get everything. To me, that's more plausible. But what's even more plausible is that it was just random. It's just randomly this kind of thing did this, and this did this, this did this. And over billions of years, we get to where we are now. Like, that's more plausible than even the intelligent life thing. But again, I don't know enough about how that process. I don't even know if it's fact that it actually happened the way that they say that it happened. I wish I knew more about that.
Right.
But to me, it's more plausible that it was just random, which is
right.
I like random. Random is more. It's more believable to me that I was like, oh, like what are the odds of that? I was like, well, they're really, really, really slim, but to me, that's more plausible than.
Right. Well, you talk about facts, and that's where it gets difficult.
Exactly. Yeah.
We're talking about something that happened so long ago before there was really any recording of data or any of that. I mean, you can't really have facts on either side of it, right? Yeah. Whether you're a creationist or an evolutionist, you can't. But I know a lot of them will claim they have facts, but the reality of it is you just don't. We all have the same evidence. Creationists and evolutionists have the same bones. They have the same fossils. They have all that, and the same Earth's crust. They have the same dating methods, everything, right? But they're coming to different conclusions. And the evolutionists would say, well, that's because the creationist wants there to be a God, so therefore he's making the evidence fit his God model.
It's like ghost hunters.
Yeah.
You're looking only for evidence that backs up your belief that was
correct.
an EVP.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
But then the creationists would say that about the evolutionists as well. Yeah. They'd say, well, they're only going to look for evidence that proves there is no God. You see, so that's when it gets dicey. So, I mean, something simple, somewhat simple that I like to do, and I do this with everybody just because it's kind of fun. But back to the idea that it's more plausible to you that just random, that it's just random.
Right.
But if I was to say, we have this piece of paper here, and it's got words on it, and if you read it, because you speak English and you read English, if you were to read it, you would be able to get the message. Right. Like you would read that and say, okay, it says, do you have a specific genre of music that you like most? That means something to you and it means something to anybody that knows English, right?
Right.
So if I was to tell you that all the words on this page just happened. It just happened there. There was no intelligent person that wrote out the message. There it is. Would you say that is more plausible than the idea that I actually typed these words out in order to convey a specific message, in this case to myself, because they're my cheat notes? So what would be more plausible in that sense? That this randomly appeared there, or that I did it, right? Yeah. So what we do then is we'd say, okay, well, and this is a piece of paper that presents a message, but then you look at people. Even lower than that, look at animals, right? You have animals that need a certain kind of air. They need a certain kind of food. They need a certain kind of vitamins and proteins and all this stuff in order for their bodies to survive. They need a certain temperature for their bodies to survive. And all that just happens to be on Earth, right? And then you look at people who just happen to eat those animals, unless you're vegetarian. Which you might be. You used to be vegetarian.
I am. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So you don't eat those animals. No. Some people eat those animals. So in your case, it would be like
plants and berries,
plants and fruits. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Whatever the vegetation, that kind of thing. For you, it'd be like beans and tofu and stuff like that you'd be getting your proteins from. So then to look at all that, and then you look at humans with brain waves and emotions and just all the complex. Look at DNA. They break down DNA, and it's a message. Every person has a specific message written in their DNA, and no two are alike. So that's where I'd say, for someone to say that it's more plausible to say that, like, DNA, let's compare DNA to this, that DNA just randomly happened with no intelligence behind it, to me is crazier than saying that this just appeared with no intelligence behind it. Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah. So that makes more sense to a lot of people when we talk about it, because it's when we start talking about specific religions and Christianity in general, maybe for me, and the Bible. And that's when people are like, no, I'm not okay with that. I'm not good with that. Because now we're talking about a personable God who loves us, supposedly. And then that's where you have your whole dilemma, which is a lot of people's dilemma. The number one people don't believe in God is world suffering. Yep. Number one. That's always what people come to when they talk to me. A lot of times they'll say, well, why don't you believe in God? Well, because this happened to me. Or there was you've heard of Billy Graham. So he's one of the most famous, he's dead now, but he's one of the most famous evangelists of all time. When he first started, there was a guy named Charles Templeton, who I don't know, you've probably never heard of him. So he was with Billy Graham, and they were evangelists together. And some people predicted that Charles Templeton was going to be even bigger than Billy Graham at the point. So Charles Templeton one time saw a National Geographic magazine where a woman in Africa was holding her dead baby, and she's just sobbing, and she's looking to the heavens like, why? Like, why did this happen? Like, she's in total anguish. And he said, at that moment, I became an atheist.
Wow.
Right? So he's looking at that suffering, and he says, there is no way that I can believe that a loving God would allow that to happen to that woman. Right? It's a very common thought. And I get it. I do get it, but I also look at it like it's this kind of similar to my kids saying, Dad, how can you take my phone away for a week? How dare you? And they're crying. And I know it's
their mind is the same.
Exactly. Right. Their life is over. Yeah. Right. But I know there's a reason that I took their phone. I'm trying to teach them something. They don't know that. They hate my guts. They if they had a way to kill me, they probably would, How dare you take my phone?
It's a good thing they don't watch true crime.
Yeah, right. Right. Well, look at that, true crime. You see these kids that kill their parents. Right. It's usually for something like that. Yeah. In fact, there was a true crime I saw where the young man killed his parents because they took his phone away.
Wow.
It was an actual story.
I see the boyfriend one a lot.
Yeah.
The boyfriend one is big.
Yes.
You won't let me be with my boyfriend, I'm just going to kill you guys.
Right. Exactly. Wow. Yeah. Because from jail, you can be with your boyfriend for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh. But anyway, I didn't mean to go on a big rant there. But I mean, so as far as, let's look at intelligent design versus unguided process. I mean, does that kind of make sense, or do you still kind of be like, no way?
That's a very interesting point. Yeah.
Okay.
And a part of part of me realized just how a high school teacher, it wasn't even like religion or anything like that. I forget I don't even think he should have been talking to us about that. It's a public high school.
Yeah, he probably shouldn't be.
He went off on his own thing, but he made a very good point that I couldn't really argue with him. He was talking about the Big Bang Theory, and he's like, you look at that like a car accident. He's like, think of a 20 car pileup. he's like, we have like the Goldilocks thing going on here on Earth with everything like you just mentioned with the plants and the ant, everything working perfectly,
right?
In harmony. And he's like, that happened because of the Big Bang Theory. When you look at a 20-car pileup, how much harmony do you see right there? He's like, I don't see any. I just see just a mess.
Just chaos, right?
Yeah. He's like, I don't see any of it. I was like, I really want to argue with this guy, but I can't because it's a very good point.
Right. So do you see design when you see the world then, or do you see chaos?
I see chaos.
Okay.
I see randomness. I see, because they talk about, there's, billions of stars or whatever. And if just one of those stars held, I think they mentioned this they might have mentioned it on Contact. Actually, I love that movie. Great movie. Or like if just one of those stars held, semi-intelligent life, that's one in, billions. So if you're talking just like, they made a very good point where like it just needs to happen once.
Right.
And if you're talking billions and trillions of stars that could possibly support life, then statistically one of them has to get it right. And, maybe we're that one in a billion that worked. Maybe there's another one in a trillion somewhere out there that we have no chance of getting to. So it's just like, yes, is it amazing the way life works? It absolutely is.
Right.
But I mean, we didn't start, like this. We, like I said, we took millions and billions of years to get here through a very slow process of evolution. And that's what makes it more plausible to me, is that we didn't just appear and all of a sudden here we are, like ruling the earth. Like, no, this was a very slow process. We beat out the other Homo, whatever, Egypticus or whatever they were the other ones that we ended up massacring. And we became the dominant species because of that, and we caused many animals to be extinct because we were busy taking over the world or whatever. So, and, we learned how to make fire and learn how to make the wheel and this and this and this. Like, oh, okay, cool. It took us a very, and judging how old the Earth is, we've barely been here. Like, we're a blip on the Earth's radar. And the way we're going, we're not going to last much longer anyway. So who knows what the next species that's going to take over is going to be. Then they'll barely remember us like we remember the dinosaurs, kind of thing.
Right.
So that's where I think we're headed. We just happen to be the dominant species. The dinosaurs have us beat by millions and millions of years. They were the rulers of this planet for millions of years. We've barely been here. So, why are we so special and the dinosaurs aren't?
Thumbs. I told you.
Yep.
So why is it why would it make more sense to you to have it be a slow process over millions of years as opposed to instantly?
Just because that's just, it's par for the course. Like, nothing just appears. There's always a process, and a very slow process, and that, to me, that is more realistic for it to happen that way.
Well, what do you mean everything happens slowly? Like, give me an example of what do you mean? Like,
well, like, I mean, like, we didn't just appear, we descended from, whatever, and living in caves, and, we slowly, you see it with apes and stuff, I mean, they're using sticks to put it into the anthill. I'm like, that's very impressive.
Right.
They learned that, and we're more advanced than they are, obviously, but I mean, they're what, like 1% difference of DNA between us and them.
Yeah.
Like, and so it's believable that, yes, we, survival of the fittest, we made it through the other humanoids that came Cro-Magnon and stuff like that. They didn't make it because they didn't have the brain power, that we had. We come along, we're better equipped. We, slowly got more and more advanced, and here we are today. I'm like, okay, I'd buy that.
So do you think if we survive, if our Earth survives for another million years, do you think there'll be like another sect of humanism of humans that are even more advanced?
No, I think we'll be long dead before that.
No, but like if we did.
Oh.
I'm saying, like, hypothetically, if our planet lasts another million years, if this continues, this evolutionary process, do you see us as being like this advanced race even more so, or like moving stuff with our mind, and we're floating around and we're like...
Possibly. Because I mean, like what they say, like we use like a tiny percent of our brain. So, I mean, I've heard that, you unlock that, and all that. I mean, that's possible. I mean, just from a technological standpoint, I mean, just the technological advances in the last decade alone, like who knows if we don't blow ourselves up, where this technology is going to take us in the future. Maybe we can technologically tap into our brains and unlock, telekinesis and all that stuff. And like, who knows?
Right. I personally, and this isn't a very popular view, even among other Christians, I think we've been degenerating from day one, from what I would call Adam and Eve, right? I think that Adam and Eve were as perfect as human can be. And I think we've been degenerating. I think technologically we've been advancing, but I think there's so many downfalls when it comes to the human mind, the human soul.
That's why I don't think we're going to make it.
You're right.
Yeah.
I mean, so we're making leaps and bounds. We're able to do all this stuff faster. We can microwave our food now, and we don't have to, spend all day walking back and forth to the water hole with the pots on our head and then spend 6 hours boiling water just to make soup for dinner or whatever, we're way beyond that.
Cup of noodles.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Right. Cup of noodles. Could you imagine like somebody from thousands of years ago? Check this out.
Yeah.
We have our hot water dispenser. We just pour that in there, close the lid for 2 minutes, boom, soup.
Yep.
They're gonna be like, what?
We're warlocks.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It'll be witchcraft, right?
Yeah.
How'd you do that? But I think there's so many downfalls to that, though. Like we're just talking about with the technology and the phones and the screens and the video games and all this, and that's seen as advancements. And I would agree that that's advancements in technology. But I don't think that's advancements in humanity.
Oh, no. Like me and my friend, we were just talking about technology, and I was like, if North Korea hits us with an EMP, society's going to shut down in like an hour. Yeah. It's going to be just anarchy and chaos.
Right.
Like if you hit us with an EMP and nothing works,
right, it's
over. Like the U.S. is gone.
Right.
Like we're just going to be the Walking Dead.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you ever see that show that was, you probably did, it was only on, I don't even think it made it through one season. I forgot what it was called.
That show.
Yeah, you know the one. The one that was only on for not even a full season, because that narrows it down. No, but it was all at once, all of the energy in the world just disappeared.
Oh.
Like it wasn't just electricity. It was all forms of energy. Like all the cars stopped moving, all the planes fell out of the sky that were up in the sky. And
wasn't the one with the St. Louis Arch, was it?
I don't know.
It was some show with the St. Louis Arch, and it was like their main.
Maybe. It could be. I totally know if I heard the name of it, but Bethany and I were watching it for a little bit. And then I found out later, a friend of mine was actually one of the cinematographers on that show. Yeah.
Nice.
This girl I grew up with. I was like, oh, trip out. We watched that show. But they canceled it shortly after. Did you watch Once Upon a Time? The show?
Once Upon a Time. I did for like the first couple of seasons.
Okay. So the guy that played the Magic Mirror, he was like one of the main characters in this other show I'm talking about.
Okay.
I forgot what his name was. He's kind of a unique looking dude. Anyway, that's beside the point. But yeah, you're right. Like if whoever knocked out all of our technology,
it's
we'd be
over.
sitting ducks.
Yeah.
Even a lot of our military.
Yeah.
You look at our missile technology and our
fighters, gone.
Our defense that would protect us from missile launches and stuff.
Yeah. You wouldn't even need to hit us with a nuke. Hit us with that.
Right.
Hit us with that. Just sit back.
Yeah.
We'll take each other out. It'll be Mad Max in a couple of months.
Yeah.
That's what I was expecting the pandemic to turn into.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, when do I get to pimp out my car?
Right. Yeah, man, for sure. Wow. How'd you fare in the pandemic? Okay. Did good?
Good. I was working in Ernie Bowl when it hit, and we were supposed to be shut down for 2 weeks. We ended up being shut down for 5 days.
Okay.
Because somehow we weren't essential. We were whatever was right underneath essential. And I don't know how to this day. Like we manufacture guitars. We're not making respirators over here.
Right.
But somehow we were able to stay open. And so we have we had 140 some odd employees. After 5 days, HR calls me and asks me if I want to come in. Considering they're not paying us for being off, we had to dip into our sick time and vacay.
Wow.
And I'm like, well, Asia, I'm more concerned at this point about making rent than I am with getting some plague. So yes, I will come into work.
Right.
And it was me, my boss, I think the guy that repairs guitars, and like payroll. So there were 4 of us in the entire building that used to house 140 something.
Oh, dang.
Yeah, and slowly we started bringing back other departments. And we had the sheriff's department come twice. The first time they ended up sending us home because they're like, well, we have paperwork. Let me get in touch with our lawyers. But to be safe, they sent everyone home. The second time the sheriff's department came, we had the papers all ready for them. So somehow we were able to stay open. So thank goodness.
Yeah.
So that was good. And I have yet to get COVID, which is great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which means you probably had it and didn't know it.
Probably, yeah.
Because there's a big group of people that were either asymptomatic or just immune to it.
Yeah.
Some people, just like every virus, there's some people that are just immune to it.
Yeah, like I've gotten all my boosters, all my shots. I'm all boosted up and everything.
Okay.
But I got a cold like 6 months ago, and I took like 20 of those home tests, and it was all negative. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's other stuff going around.
Yeah,
Right. I mean,
yeah.
it's we've all had it multiple times.
Right. Yeah, everybody I know has had. I'm not the only one that hasn't had.
Well, that's what makes me think you probably did and just didn't realize it.
Probably, yeah.
Because I honestly don't know if there's anybody, unless it's somebody who lived in a cave for 3 years or something.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
I mean, we all have to go out eventually. You know? But I guess there's some elderly people that have been holed up for years, you know, that are just like, and even today they're still on, won't go out, you know.
Yeah.
They just have people deliver food to them and stuff. But yeah, it's hard to go back and forth with all the politics even behind that, and masking and not masking, and vaccinations and not vaccinations, and it's just like, just let people do what they're going to do, you know.
I think that's what they're doing at this point,
for the most part. Yeah,
when they try to bring back the mask now,
right? There'd be uproar. Well, I had an eye doctor appointment the other day, and I walked in there, and she goes, "Do you have a mask?" And I'm like, boy, I haven't been asked that question in months. Like, what? No, I said, no, I don't. I said, is it required? And she goes, yeah. And she points to the sign.
Wow.
I go, oh, okay. I said, I'm sorry, I don't have one. Do you have one? She goes, yeah, I have one. I said, okay, wear it, put it on. And I'm like, you guys are like the only anywhere. I mean, and even the library was way strict on it forever. And then we had about a couple months ago, we had 3 people were out with it because they had tested positive. And that apparently is an outbreak status. They call that outbreak status. So the city says we all had to go back to wearing masks for 14 days unless there was another infection. I'm like, I told my boss, I was like, all this is going to mean is that people are just not going to be honest.
Yeah.
They're not going to test. Even if they do test, they're going to be like, nope, I tested, I was negative.
Yeah, that was my thing at Ernie Ball. They're like, if you have symptoms, please stay home. I was like, well, last time I checked, you're not paying us to stay home.
Yes.
So these people, they have to make rent. They have to put food on their table. So they're not going to take 2 weeks off, no pay.
Right.
They're going to be like, I'm fine.
Right.
I'm going in.
Right.
I have 106 temperature. I can't taste a thing. I'm coming in.
Right.
That's all you're going to accomplish with that.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And I think that's kind of what needed to happen anyway, is that, the herd immunity and how said herd mentality. No, that's different. Right. Herd immunity, although there was some herd mentality involved too.
Yeah, COVID parties and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Good, no, people, come on.
Well, and then they had to, early on with that, they had to put on the news that guy that died.
Oh, yeah.
He said, they're having a COVID party, and this guy was in his 30s, and they went to this COVID party, got COVID, now he's dead. Yeah. And of course they hyped that up, and it's all the sensationalism and all that.
Fear-mongering.
It's just, but like you said earlier, it's like, how do you know what to believe?
Yeah.
And it's true with everything. I mean, I still know people that are deathly afraid of COVID, like deathly afraid. Like they will not go anywhere without a mask on, and even then, it's like, I'm only going out if I have to, and I'm going to wear 3 masks, and I'm going to only take it off when I eat, or I'll even, put a little peep in there. And it's like, oh my gosh, how long are you going to live that way? You know what I mean? Like it. And I even asked somebody that one time, and I said, what do you like? What's it going to take for you to be done with this? Like, and they'll tell me when COVID's gone. And I try to tell them, COVID is never going to be gone.
It's been around forever.
Exactly. Right. And I remember when COVID first hit this big wave, and then everybody's talking about it and everything. It was the first time I ever heard of it.
Me too. Yeah.
But somebody was showing like the spray bottle of like the Lysol whatever spray, and it actually said on there, it listed a bunch of things that it kills. Coronavirus.
Wow.
And it was like, okay, this bottle came out like 10 years ago, right? And it's like, whoa, it's a conspiracy.
Yeah.
Coronavirus has always been in existence. It's like, no, it has always been in existence. It's a virus, right? Yeah. It's like the flu or anything else, So yeah, it's just bad. Like, anyway, I feel bad for people, and they always try to exploit whenever there was the guys that were outspokenly against masking and outspokenly against the vaccines, and one of them dies.
Right.
And then the media just exploits that. Look at this guy. Here's his radio show where he was talking all about how people that get the vaccine are stupid. Yeah. Look what happened to him. Yeah. It's like, okay, really? Come on, guys. Seriously. But anyway,
division.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you were saying, it's division in every, I know it's happening. What I don't understand is the purpose. I don't understand why the government and the media wants to divide us racially. They want to divide us by political lines. They want to divide us in any way they can, whether it's even with COVID.
Yeah.
There was a big division there.
Oh, yeah.
There became the vaxxers and the anti-vaxxers, and the maskers and the anti-maskers, and it was like, and there was
Stewardesses
hatred.
getting punched in the face.
Yes, right.
I'm like,
yes.
What is catching a federal charge gonna do?
Right.
It's not
Yes.
gonna further your cause. It's just gonna get you thrown in prison.
Right.
And get you banned from that airline for life.
Right. And then all the videos of like the grocery stores where the guy's following the single mom or the mom around with her kids, yelling at her, "Put your mask on!
Yeah.
What's the matter with you? Put your mask on!" And she's like, "If you're scared of it, get away from me.
Yeah.
Why are you getting within an inch of my face yelling at me if you're scared of COVID?"
Yeah.
No, because if I gotta wear a mask, you gotta wear a mask too. It's like, dude, how old are you?
That's what it comes down to.
You know?
I gotta do what everyone's gotta do.
Right,
I'm not gonna be the only one doing it. This is terrible.
You're right. Right. And I get that. And I had to deal with some of that because I was kind of like, there were times at work where I was just like, I'm not doing this. And, you know, and I ended up getting called in to the office, and the boss is like, you know, what are you doing? I said, well, I just figured, you know, it was okay now. No, you got to wear, you still, if you're self-attest, because I'm unvaxxed and I'm self-attested unvaxxed, you have to sign the paper, either saying you're vaccinated or saying you're not, you know, or saying you refuse to answer, which of course is an admission of guilt. You know, I refuse to answer. Well, you know, he's not vaccinated, you know, so if you did that, you had to wear one. And I had coworkers that were, you know, saying to my face, why aren't you wearing a mask? And I'm like, what? Mind your own business. And that was the response. If I have to wear it, then you have to wear it too. I hate this thing too, just as much as you do. I'm like, my responsibility, no, wear it. If all of us just said no, what are they gonna do? You know, and I hate to be that way. I hate to be that you know, activist kind of mindset, like, oh, let's strike. You know. So anyway, all right. Final question for you. Back to the God thing. Since you went from agnosticism to atheism, what if you could dictate everything? Like you made the decision, you decided, all right, God, here's what you need to do for me to prove that you're real. What would that be? Like what would have to happen for you to say, okay, there is a God?
Wow.
Deep.
That is.
Deep-rooted question there.
Because then I immediately went to, well, is it something in my life, or are we talking
either
the world?
Whatever would do it for you, if anything. Maybe there's nothing. Maybe there's like, no, I'm at the point now where there is literally nothing that could convince me otherwise.
I guess it would just come back to the whole suffering thing. If you could,
suffering went away
just
completely.
The suffering went away completely, I'd be on board.
Okay.
But then that's kind of, that goes against the entire thing, because if that's part of the whole plan, the whole, you know, thingy, then he wouldn't do that, because this is his whole thing he's got going on. If I say, okay, take away the suffering, he's like, well, no, the suffering is an integral part of my plan.
Right.
You're going to mess it up, so I can't do that. I was like, well, there you go.
Well, because if the purpose is for learning and teaching, right?
Exactly.
And that kind of goes back to something you said earlier that I was going to address it after you finished talking. I didn't want to interrupt you. And I totally forgot until just now. You said, if we're just a blip and we're here for such a short time, and then what's the point?
Right.
Like if there's going to be an afterlife and there's an eternity in an afterlife,
right. Why am I here for 80 years?
Why are you here for 80 years? What's the whole point? Well, the Christian response to that is it has to do with free will, right? Because then we get into, well, could God have done this way? Could God have done that? Yeah, he could have done it any way he wanted if he's God and he's all powerful. Right. He could have just put everybody in heaven. All right, everybody's in heaven. Or if he was mean and angry, he'd say, I'll just make everybody put everybody in hell. Whatever, you know. Right. But because of free will, he gives us a lifetime, a human lifetime, to choose him or not, right? So I mean, there can't really be a choice. There's no free will if he just says, all right, everybody, I'm making all these creatures and I'm putting them all in heaven. Right. There's no choice there, because once you're in heaven, you can't, there's no, like, I guess he could have done that way too. He might, all right, here's paradise, here's heaven, but one screw up, man, and you're going on the down escalator, you know, or the free fall, right? You know, trap door. So if no suffering existed, and how does that play in, though, again, to what you said about the suffering that you've gone through, that you're glad?
Well, see, that's an interesting question, but it's also, and this sounds silly, but it's an acceptable level of suffering. Like this suffering didn't affect. I mean, I guess to some extent it affected my loved ones because they didn't like seeing me in this deep depression.
Right.
Me and my mom actually got in because my mom's powerless to do anything about this. Me and her kind of got into some friction because she just wanted me to snap out of it. And I'm like, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, right.
Like, do you think I like feeling this way? It's not a choice.
Yeah, people don't understand.
Yeah, like I'll hopefully get out of it, but it's not gonna be tomorrow. I'll tell you that much.
Right.
But it's my suffering was more just my suffering. I'm the only one that really went through it, and I didn't, it didn't affect anybody else. I didn't hurt anybody else through that. But if I was talking like if you can't compare my suffering to the suffering of a rape victim or genocide or something like that. It's like that kind of suffering. Like my suffering, I could actually accept that if he came down and be like, you know what, that was for you, man. That and it did good, didn't it? I'm like, okay, fine, you got me there. It did. Thank you.
Right.
That it worked, but I can't compare that to rape victims, molestation cases, genocide. There's no lesson there. That's just bad, and that's affecting a lot of different people. Like that's a whole different level of suffering. That's the kind of suffering that I don't see any good can come out of that for the victim or anybody else for that matter.
What if you could find a rape victim that said that they were glad that happened to them?
I would love to talk to that person. I would love to talk to that person
because I'm sure they exist. I'm sure not necessarily that it'd be kind of a similar thing, but on a grander scale than what you're talking about with your own life. They would say, now, when you were in that circumstance and that was happening to you, were you enjoying that?
Right.
No, it was horrific. It was the worst thing I've ever gone through. But then 10 years later, because of what that did to them, what they learned from that, and I understand this is a hard thing to talk about because it's like, well, how can anybody ever say that that's a good situation? I'm not saying it's a good situation, but sometimes good things come out of horrific situations. Yeah. And I bet you could find somebody that would say that would say, no, I'm because of who I am today, I wouldn't be who I am today because of if that didn't happen to me. Right. Not that they're saying that's great. I hope everybody goes and gets raped. Right. But I think it's important to understand that things like that are, if there's a God and he knows us and he knows what we need and all that kind of stuff. Right. Each thing like that is unique to that person, right? Like I could go through the same experience you went through, and maybe I don't have the same experience with that same thing. Right. Like I don't come out of it and say, I'm glad that happened. I might still be going, no, I hope that never happens to me or anybody else ever again. Right. But I know I said last question, but I remember there's another thing that I like to ask when talking with an atheist about morality. So you just reminded me when you were talking about things that are horrific, rape, child molestation, child rape, whatever, genocide, you mentioned things like that. And you're labeling that as horrendous or bad, evil, whatever word we want to use there. Why do you say that? Like from an atheistic standpoint where there is no God, why do you view that as a bad thing if there's no moral standard to judge it by?
Just as decent human beings, like just like something that separates us from the animals is that it's another reason why I'm a vegetarian. Like we don't have to go out and kill animals. We don't. Right. Like vegetarians are living proof of that. We don't have to do that. Sure. And animals, we do it, like my friend's friend is a hunter and he uses every inch of that the creature. And I still have a problem with that, but I have a much less problem with that. Like you get to like the level of poachers. Like I'm going to kill this animal because I want his tusk, or I'm going to kill this animal because I've always wanted to take down a lion with my gun. I could shoot from a mile away. Right. That's sport. That's cruelty. Animals don't do that. Animals and hunter-gatherer tribes, Native Americans, they do it because if I don't do this, I'm going to starve. My family's going to starve. My cubs are going to die.
Right.
I have to do this. I'm not doing it because I enjoy it. It's not sport. It's not to be cruel. It's not because I don't like that gazelle. He's just pissing me off.
Right.
Like, no,
right.
I'm going to kill him.
Stop looking at me, gazelle.
I'm going to do it because I want to live. My brother asked me a silly question. He's like, you're on an island with you and a chicken. You gonna kill the chicken? I'm like, of course I'm gonna kill the chicken.
Right.
I want to live.
Right.
Am I gonna feel bad about it? Absolutely. But that chicken's gonna go because I have a sense of self-preservation.
What you're saying is if it's you or the animal, you'll kill and eat the animal.
I will.
But if you have a way of living without killing animals, you'll do that instead.
Yeah, especially if it's a chicken. He's going to lay eggs. I got eggs and I got berries.
There you go,
me
man.
and the chicken are going to be BFFs.
Yeah.
That chicken means a lot to me.
You can have a blueberry omelet.
Exactly. But see, it's with other animals don't have the I don't even want to call it evil, because when people call serial killers evil or monsters, I don't like that, because that puts them on a different level that I don't think, because monsters are to be feared and respected kind of thing. I don't like that. They shouldn't be on that level. They're more on the level of like dung beetles, where it's just like we do things to each other that are just horrible and serve no purpose whatsoever. Animals don't do that. Like the Matrix, Agent Smith gave a great speech where he said that he's like observing your species. Like, I realize you guys aren't actually mammals. He's like, every other mammal on this planet creates a harmony with their environment. He's like, you humans don't. You move to an area and you use up every natural resource. And once every natural resource is used up, you move on to the next one and you do the exact same thing. And he's like, a virus does that. You guys are a virus, and us machines, we're the cure. And I'm like, man, that's good.
Right.
And it's totally true. Like, we're a plague to this planet. We really are.
Right.
Like, we're destroying the planet at an exponential rate. And
when you say we, do you mean humans or
humans with our using up all the fossil fuels and our drilling and our polluting the environment?
Like, that's more like of a Western thing, though, because if you go to some other like more bush country,
true,
where they're not doing that, they're kind of living more like the Native American life, where they're like you said, they're using the whole animal, or they're using the resources in a more responsible way, right? So it's more the Western way of thinking. Right. It's like, all right, produce. How can I make more money?
Like the industrial,
right?
Yeah, like that. But yeah, like with the whole serial killers and rapists and stuff. That's just. That to me is a unique human nature. That's just
right.
Yeah.
Because what you're saying is when an animal kills another animal, it's strictly for food.
Yeah.
It's for survival. It's a what's the word? Instinct.
Yeah.
It's animal instinct for survival, as opposed to Ted Bundy, who's killing people because he's sick. Yeah. It's not because he's like, oh, I need that for my own survival. I mean, maybe he thinks he needs that for his own survival. Yeah. Maybe in a mental way, he's like, I'm going to go nuts if I don't, because obviously there's something wrong there.
Yeah, it's clearly something.
These aren't mentally stable people that are able to do something like that, because, for most of us, and thankfully that's a small minority of the population. It is, yeah. Right? I mean, very, very small minority. Yeah. But for most of us, we think to ourselves, even if we get so angry, we've all been angry at somebody, but we'd never even think that. Right. Or even if we did think it for a split second, we'd never actually act on it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, maybe some guys get in the heat of the moment, they're in a bar fight and the guy happens to have a knife on him and he pulls it out in anger and stabs the guy, whatever. But even then, an hour later, he's going to be remorseful. He's going to regret that, whether because he's in jail or whatever the case may be. Yeah. He's going to think, man, I shouldn't have been so stupid, to where I don't know if the serial killer really feels that way, Yeah. But I guess I bring up the idea of morality because the argument would be that if you don't have a moral standard, then how can you say something's bad or good? Like, you said to me, Ryan, do you think rape's wrong? I'd say yes. You'd say, why? Because God said it's wrong. To where an atheist, if we're all just random creatures bumping into each other in the universe, then who cares if I kill somebody? Who cares if I rape somebody?
Well, because we're civilized. Like, even animals, like I said, even animals don't do that. Mm-hmm. So, and we think we're superior to these animals. We think that they're put here for our dinner, which they're not. Right. But we think that because we're the dominant species on the planet. We run this planet. So naturally, everything put here is put here for us. And it's like with the Romans with the Colosseum. I mean, how many species went extinct because they were shipping them in to get murdered because, hey, we run the planet.
Right.
It's like, no, like we're acting way worse than these animals that, you know, they don't do that.
Right.
But because we run the world, we can do, we make our own standards. We do what we want.
Do you see a distinction between us and animals, though? Do you think that we are in any way, I'm not going to use the word superior because that's not what I mean, but do you think we're a different, because we're animals scientifically, right? Human animal.
Yeah.
But do you see us as different than all the other animals at all?
I think we're more advanced. I think we're more civilized, but that doesn't give us the right to... We're all animals on this planet. We should not be exploiting each other for any reason other than absolute survival.
Right.
Like if we absolutely have to, like with the hunter-gatherers, I have zero problem with them because they're doing it so they can live.
Right.
That's totally fine. They don't live in, you know, Jersey. They live in the middle of the Brazilian rainforest somewhere.
But if the hunter-gatherers were killing other humans, would you have the same viewpoint that you just said? Or would you say, oh, okay, that's where I draw the line. Yes, it's for survival, but you're killing other people. Killing animals for survival is one thing, but killing people is not. And if you say, yes, there's a difference, that's what I'm asking. If you see like a difference in, see, again, I hate to use the word value because that makes it sound like, well, I'm more valuable than you, therefore I can kill you.
Right.
You know, or I'm more intelligent than you, therefore I can kill you. If that was the case, then you could look at mentally handicapped people and say, well, I can kill them because I'm more intelligent than them.
Right.
I'm just saying as far as humans versus animal.
Well, you look at cannibalism, for instance.
Right.
Like if it, like with the, they made that movie.
End of the Spear?
Huh?
End of the Spear?
No, the movie about the true story of Moby Dick. It has Spider-Man and it has Thor in it.
Oh.
It's based on the true story of how Melville actually came up with, because they actually were supposedly attacked by like this rogue giant whale in the whaling times, and a couple of the boats got separated, and they actually drew straws because they wanted to live. So they're like, well, let's draw straws as to who's going to die so the rest of us can live.
Right.
I have no problem with that. I know they caught a lot of flack when they came back, but like with Alive, with that soccer team that got dragged in the Andes, I have zero problem with that, especially since they were eating the ones that were dead already.
Well, but here's what I'm asking. So use the Alive guys. Their plane crashes. There's only them.
Right.
Now, what if their plane crashed and there was also a bunch of sheep? Now, would you say that they should eat the sheep first, or should they still go for the people?
That's a very interesting question.
Yeah, because your example is saying that there's only people. Right. So the only way we're going to survive is by eating each other. That's the only option here. Right. Or we all just die of starvation, you know? That's what I'm getting at.
I guess the sheep, just because like, I would say the sheep.
Okay.
Because unless you absolutely have, because there's a psychological, that's going to mess you up.
Right.
Like eating, even if it's already a deceased person, like that's whole, we're not meant to do that. So that's a whole, you're going to cause more problems once we get out of here than the problems we're facing now. Whereas if we eat the sheep, especially if we ration it, we can survive a lot longer with the sheep. You know, we can keep some of them fed. Maybe we could even feed the dead people to the sheep to make them last longer, so we can ration out the food, the sheep food, and then we'll make it out of here and we won't have all this in our heads when we get back to civilization, kind of thing.
Or if you had a ram too, then you could also be breeding the sheep, and then you could try to do it in such a way that you would always have a continuous supply of sheep.
We wouldn't have to leave. We could just stay here.
Yeah, you'd start your own little civilization there, you know? All right, man. Well, shoot, that was fun.
Yeah,
that was awesome. Thanks for coming and hanging out.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
It's been way too long for us to talk. So
it's my first podcast. So
nice. Yeah, nice. Yeah, it's just been fun. It's just kind of cool, especially when I get to meet up with people I haven't talked to in so long.
Yeah,
and to talk about things and to hear that there's some things that are the same and some things that aren't. I don't think you were a vegetarian back when you worked at the library, were you?
No, I wasn't. I started in 2012.
Okay.
Or 2013. It'll be 10 years in January.
Okay.
So yeah, 2013 is when I.
You're not vegan. You're just vegetarian.
No, just vegetarian. I love cheese too much.
Okay. Yeah. But see, back when I was a vegetarian for a long 16 years, I believe.
Oh.
Yeah, I became a vegetarian when I was like 15 or 16 in high school. I think I was a sophomore in high school. for the same kind of reasons, more moral reasons. I thought it was wrong to kill animals and for food, and if I didn't have to. And then my wife became a vegetarian shortly after we got together. Nice. And she still is.
Nice.
So she'll eat some fish occasionally, but for the most part, do you eat any fish?
No shellfish, no nothing.
Okay, yeah. So she'll eat like ahi salad and that kind of thing.
I do miss seafood more than anything else.
Right, yeah.
I miss it. Calamari, crab. Oh my gosh, I miss it.
Killing me, man. It's getting close to dinner time here. But yeah, so I did that for a long time, and then Bethany was pregnant with our third child when I started eating meat again. But I forgot where I was going with that. Oh, so when I was a vegetarian, I would have people telling me that, that's not enough.
Right.
You need to be vegan. If you're a vegetarian for moral reasons, you said they'd say you realize that dairy is worse, right? Because that's like you're raping the animal. You're stealing what's for their babies. Right. And then you're making cheese and you're making ice cream and you're doing all this stuff with it. Yeah. It'd be better for you just to chop their heads off and eat them for steak, or whatever. And I used to get all kind of stuff. I had a guy come up to me one time. I was working down in a factory in San Diego, and he goes, "Oh, I heard you're a vegetarian." Obviously, I could tell right then this guy's going to try to start something with me. I was like, "Yeah, I'm a vegetarian." He goes, "What kind of shoes you wearing?"
Oh, God.
I said, "I don't know, Nikes." He goes, "They're made out of leather, right?" I said, "Probably." He goes, "How are you going to not eat meat, but you wear leather shoes, dude?" He said, "You can't do both. You got to go all in or not." I said, "Well, first of all, I don't have to do what you tell me to do because I'm not living for you anyway."
Right.
But I think what I said was, "Well, I do what I can." Just kind of a cop-out answer. I mean, because he's probably right. If my whole point is really that I'm trying to save the lives of animals, yet I'm wearing animal skins on my feet, but that could go right in with the whole idea of, like you're saying, using the whole animal, right? Like the Native Americans would do. It's like, well, I'm using the whole animal. Yeah. I'm just not eating the meat. That's all, but I'm gonna use the leather shoes, Yeah. So anyway, all right, well, cool, man. Shoot.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. If you did, please tell somebody about it. Also, please subscribe if you haven't yet. And as always, you can contact me at whycan'twetalkaboutThat@proton.me. Please also join the Why Can't We Talk About That podcast Facebook group and let us know what you think about the topics that we've been discussing in these episodes. Here is a clip from next week's.
I'll say that I believe in life outside of us in the universe. I feel much strongly about than anything religious or spiritual. Okay. Because I agree with what you just said. That's been my mindset for most of my life, is how self-centered to think that we could be the only things out there.
Right.
And I think that it's so sculpted to us that it's just like we're looking for water on Mars.
Right.
What? Think bigger, think something that doesn't need water, and things that could just be microscopic. Yes. I think that it's so other civilizations and technology and all of this. It could be something so beyond anything we've ever seen.
Right.
Just existing out there.
Right.